Mastering After Effects. A Practical Guide to Professional Motion Design. By Ahmed Bahig and Ahmed Abdelghani. Genre: Computers and Technology. Target audience: aspiring motion graphics artists, video editors, YouTubers, and digital content creators. Style: technical, practical, tutorial, instructional, visual heavy, action-oriented. Chapter 1: Setting the Stage, Interface and Workflow Basics. Section 1.1: Decoding the Workspace, a visual tour of panels and tools. Section 1.2: Importing assets and organizing your project bin. Section 1.3: Composition settings, resolution, frame rates, and aspect ratios explained. Section 1.4: Your first save, understanding project files and autosave preferences. Opening Adobe After Effects for the first time feels a bit like sitting in the cockpit of a fighter jet. There are buttons everywhere, unfamiliar graphs, and a dark gray interface that screams complexity. If you feel a slight hesitation, take a deep breath. That is a completely normal reaction for every motion designer, myself included. But here is the secret: you don't need to know what every single switch does to fly the plane. In fact, most professionals only use about 20% of the software's capabilities on a daily basis. The rest are specialized tools you pick up when the specific need arises. In this chapter, we are going to demystify that interface. We will turn that intimidating cockpit into a comfortable, organized creative studio. We will set up your first container for video, import your raw materials, and ensure that your hard work is saved automatically so you never lose a pixel of progress. Let's get your hands on the controls. Section 1.1: Decoding the Workspace, a visual tour of panels and tools. The After Effects workspace is modular, meaning you can move panels around, but that the standard layout is where we should start. It is designed to follow a logical creative flow. You gather materials on the left, build them in the middle, and adjust properties on the right. Think of your screen as a physical workbench. You wouldn't throw your hammer, nails, and wood into a pile and hope for the best. You need a place for tools, a place for materials, and a clean surface to build on. Figure: high-resolution screenshot of the default Adobe After Effects 2024 standard workspace. The image is annotated with bright neon outlines highlighting three main areas. 1. The project panel, left. 2. The composition viewer, center. And 3. The timeline, bottom. The lighting should be clean and UI text crisp. The big three panels. While there are many panels, your workflow revolves around three specific areas. Understanding the relationship between these three is 90% of the battle in navigating the software. 1. The project panel, the pantry, located on the far left. This is where your ingredients live. Your video clips, music, images, and logos sit here before you use them. Nothing appears in your final video unless it lives in this panel first. 2. The composition panel, the canvas. This is the large center window. It is your visual monitor. Whatever you are building, this is where you see the result. If the project panel is your pantry, this is the dinner plate where you present the meal. 3. The timeline, the recipe, running across the bottom. This is where the magic happens. It controls when things appear and how they move. It is a stack of layers. The layer at the top of the stack covers the layers below it, just like papers on a desk. The tools bar. At the very top left of the application window sits your toolbar. You will spend most of your time with the selection tool, the arrow, and the hand tool for moving your view. Here is a quick reference for the tools you need on day 1. Tool icon name shortcut function. If you ever mess up your panel layout, perhaps you accidentally closed the timeline and can't get it back, don't panic. Go to the top menu bar, select Window Workspace Reset Standard to saved layout. Everything will snap back to its factory position. Section 1.2: Importing assets and organizing your project bin. A messy project file is a nightmare waiting to happen. I have seen talented editors lose hours of work simply because they couldn't find a specific file in a sea of chaotic names. We are going to build good habits right now. After Effects does not store your video files inside the project file.eep. Instead, it creates a link to where the file lives on your hard drive. If you move, rename, or delete the file on your computer, After Effects will panic and show you a color bar's error image. Figure, a split-screen comparison graphic. On the left, a chaotic bad project panel with loose files named dimg_001.mov and download1.jpg. On the right, a good project panel with neat folders labeled 01_footage, 02_audio, 03_graphics, and 04_comps. A green checkmark sits over the organized side. How to import. There are 3 ways to bring assets into your project panel, ranging from the standard to pro speed. The menu way, go to File, Import a file. The drag and drag files from your computer's file explorer directly into the project panel. The pro double-click anywhere in the empty gray space of the project panel. This instantly opens the import window. Organizing with bins. In video editing, folders inside your project are called bins. Before you start dragging files onto the timeline, create a structure. Click the folder icon at the bottom of the project panel to create new bins. I recommend this structure for every project, *00_comps, for your timelines, *01_video, for raw footage, *02_audio, music and SFX, *03_graphics, logos, vectors, PNGs. Naming your files before you import them is also a wise move. beach_drone_shot.mp4 is infinitely easier to find later than C00 for 5_xh.mp4. Section 1.3, Composition Settings, Resolution, Frame Rates, and Aspect Ratios explained. You cannot just start editing in After Effects. You must first create a composition, often called a comp. A comp is the container that holds your layers. It dictates the size, shape, and speed of your video. To create one, click the big button in the project panel that says New Composition, or press Ctrl+N, Windows, CMD+N, Mac. This opens the Composition Settings dialog box. Figure, close-up diagram of the Composition Settings dialog box in After Effects. Call-out lines explain specific fields. Width height determines resolution, 1920 by 1080, frame rate shows 24 or 30, and duration shows the timecode format. The visual style should be instructional and schematic. Resolution, how sharp? Resolution is the number of pixels on the screen. While 4K is popular, 1920 by 1080 HD is still the industry standard for most online content, tutorials, and corporate work. 1920 by 1080, the standard HD widescreen look. Best for beginners as it is less taxing on your computer. 1080 by 1920, vertical video, TikTok, Shorts, Reels. 3840 by 2160, 4K UHD. Use this only if you need ultra-high detail and have a powerful computer. Frame rate, the feel of the motion. Frame rate, FPS, defines how many images flash on the screen per second. This choice radically changes the emotional vibe of your animation. 24 frames per second, the cinematic look. Used in movies. Motion feels natural and slightly blurred. 30 frames per second, the TVR broadcaster's standard. Used for news, sitcoms, and general YouTube videos. 60 frames per second, the gamer sports look. Extremely fluid and sharp. Great for gameplay footage or high-tech UI animations. Duration, how long? Unlike a video editing timeline which grows as you add clips, an After Effects comp has a fixed length. You have to decide how long the container is. The timecode is displayed as hours, minutes, seconds, frames. If you want a 10-second animation, you would type 1000, which stands for 10 seconds, 00 frames, or simply type 10. 10 followed by a period. Section 1.4, Your first save, understanding project files and autosave preferences. You have set up your workspace, imported assets, and created a composition. Now, before you animate a single frame, you must save. After Effects is a complex beast, and crashes, while rarer than in the past, still happen. Go to File Save As and save your project file, .eep. The golden rule: increment and save. Professional motion designers rarely have just one file named project.eep. We use versioning. If you make a mistake on Tuesday that you can't undo, you want to be able to go back to Monday's version. Use the shortcut Ctrl+Alt+Shift+S, Windows, or CMD+Op+Shift+S, Mac. This triggers the increment and save command. If your file is named myvideo_v01.eep, hitting this shortcut automatically saves a new file named myvideo_v02.eep. Do this every time you make a major creative change. Configuring autosave. Let's set up your safety net. By default, autosave might not be frequent enough for the speed at which you will eventually work. Go to Edit Preferences, Autosave, Windows, or After Effects Preferences, Autosave, Mac. Check the box Automatically Save Projects. Set Save Every to 10 or 15 minutes. Set maximum project versions to roughly 20. Figure, a UI screenshot of the Preferences window focused on the Autosaves tab. That Save Every field is highlighted with a circle showing 10 minutes. A friendly pro tip icon overlay suggests keeping a maximum project versions high to prevent overwriting history. This ensures that AE saves a backup copy in a folder next to your project file called Adobe After Effects Autosave. It is not glamorous, but on the day your computer freezes after 3 hours of work, this folder will look like a treasure chest. Now that the stage is set, the pantry is stocked, and the safety nets are deployed, you are ready to start creating. In the next chapter, we will put things in motion. Figure Mind Map of Chapter 1, Interface and Workflow Basics, Graph TDA, Chapter 1, Setting the Stage, B, 1.1 Decoding the Workspace, B1, the Project Panel, the Pantry, B2, the Composition Panel, the Canvas, B3, the Timeline, the Recipe, B4, Tools, Select, Hand, Zoom, C, 1.2 Importing and Organizing, C1, Import Methods, Menu, Drag, Double-click, C2, the Project Bin Structure, C3, Linking Files vs Embedding, AD, 1.3 Composition Settings, DRD1. Resolution, 1080p vs 4K, DRD2, Frame Rates, 24, 30, 60 frames per second, DRD3, Duration and Timecode, AE, 1 point for saving and safety, EE1, Initial Save.eep, EE2, Increment and Save V01, V02, EE3, Autosave Preferences Setup, Figure Mind Map.
Chapter 2, Bringing Static Assets to Life, Core Animation Principles. Sections. Section 2.1, The Big Five, Mastering Position, Scale, Rotation, Opacity, and Anchor Points. Section 2.2, Setting Keyframes, The Logic Behind A to B Animation. Section 2.3, Smooth Moves, Applying Easy Ease for Natural Motion. Section 2.4, Reading the Speed Graph, Visual Adjustments in the Graph Editor. Welcome back. In Chapter 1, we got comfortable in the cockpit. We arranged our panels, learned how to import footage, and set up our first composition. But right now, if you look at your composition window, everything is sitting perfectly still. It is time to change that. This chapter is where the magic actually happens. We are going to take those static logos, text layers, and shapes, and breathe life into them using the fundamental building blocks of motion design. Don't worry about complex physics simulations or 3D cameras yet. The truth is, 90% of the incredible motion graphics you see in high-end commercials are built using just 5 basic properties. Master these, and you can animate almost anything. Let's get things moving. 2.1 The Big Five, Mastering Position, Scale, Rotation, Opacity, and Anchor Points. Every visible layer in your timeline has a transform menu. These are the DNA of your animation. To be a fast editor, you shouldn't be twirling down little arrows with your mouse to find these. You need to know the keyboard shortcuts by heart. I call these the Big Five. They are the properties you will reach for every single time you sit down to animate. Here is the breakdown of the properties and the single key shortcuts to reveal them on a selected layer. Property shortcut description. Figure: a clean, high-resolution screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel. A single shape layer named blue square is selected. The user has pressed P, S, R, T, and A sequentially, so all 5 properties are visible under the layer name. The values are highlighted in blue text: position 960, 540, scale 100, 100%, rotation 0x plus 0.0, opacity 100%. The background is the standard dark gray AE interface. The anchor point, the most important invisible dot. Before you animate a single pixel, you must understand the anchor point. Beginners often ignore this, and it leads to frustration immediately. Imagine sticking a piece of paper to a wall with a thumbtack. If you put the tack in the center and spin the paper, it spins perfectly around the middle. If you put the tack in the top left corner and spin the paper, it swings wildly like a pendulum. That thumbtack is your anchor point. In After Effects, this point looks like a small target reticle. By default, it is usually in the center of your object, but not always. If you try to scale a box and it shrinks toward the corner instead of the center, your anchor point is in the wrong spot. Figure: a side-by-side diagram comparison. On the left, a square rotates around an anchor point located in its exact center, spinning neatly in place. On the right, the same square rotates around an anchor point located in the top left corner, swinging in a wide arc. Red arrows indicate the direction of motion to visualize the pivot effect. To move it, press Y on your keyboard to grab the pan behind, anchor point, tool. You can now drag that target reticle anywhere you want, even outside the object itself. Pro tip: hold Ctrl, Windows, or CMD, Mac, while dragging the anchor point to snap it perfectly to the corners or center of your layer. 2.2 Setting keyframes: the logic behind A to B animation. Now that we know what we can change, let's look at how we change it over time. This is done using keyframes. Think of a keyframe as a marker in time that tells After Effects, at this specific second, I want the object to look exactly like this. When you set 2 keyframes with different values, the software automatically calculates all the frames in between. This process is called interpolation. Here is the standard workflow for creating basic motion. Set the start time, move your current time indicator, the blue line in the timeline, to where you want the move to begin, e.g., midnight. Activate the stopwatch, click the stopwatch icon next to the property you want to change, e.g., position. A blue diamond will appear on the timeline. You have just locked in that value at that time. Move in time, move your current time indicator forward to where you want the movement to end, e.g., 2 o'clock. Change the value, drag the numbers or move the object in the composition window. After Effects automatically creates a second keyframe. Figure: a screenshot of the timeline panel focusing on the position property. On the left at midnight, there is a blue diamond keyframe. On the right at 2 o'clock, there is another blue diamond keyframe. A thin line connects them. The stopwatch icon next to the word position is highlighted in blue, indicating animation is active. The time indicator is resting on the second keyframe. Congratulations! You have just created an animation. Press the spacebar to preview it. You will see your object move from point A to point B. However, you might notice something. It looks a bit mechanical. It starts instantly at full speed and stops dead at the end. It feels like a robot, not a living thing. That is because, by default, After Effects uses linear keyframes. To make it feel real, we need to smooth it out. 2.3 Smooth moves, applying easy ease for natural motion. In the real world, nothing starts moving at full speed instantly. A car has to accelerate when the light turns green, and it has to decelerate when it brakes. This principle is called ease. If you want your animation to look professional rather than amateur, You need to apply easing to almost every movement you create. The quickest way to do this is a feature called Easy Ease. Click and drag a box around the keyframes you created in the timeline to select them. They will turn blue. Press F9 on your keyboard. On some Macs, you may need Fn plus F9. Look closely at the keyframe icons. They have changed from diamonds to hourglass shapes. Figure, a close-up macro shot of the After Effects timeline keyframes. On the top track, standard diamond-shaped linear keyframes are shown. On the bottom track, the hourglass-shaped Easy Ease keyframes are shown. The contrast highlights the visual difference in the UI icons. Now, press spacebar to preview again. You will see the object gently ramp up its speed, reach maximum velocity in the middle, and gently slow down to a stop. This subtle change makes the movement feel weighted and intentional. For 80% of your work, standard Easy Ease, F9, is sufficient. But for that final 20% of polish, where you want things to feel punchy and dynamic, we need to pop the hood and look at the engine. 2.4 Reading the speed graph, visual adjustments in the graph editor. This is the part where many beginners get scared and quit. Don't be one of them. The graph editor looks like high school calculus, but it is actually just a visual representation of speed. Select your position property, make sure the keyframes are still selected, and click the Graph Editor button. It looks like a small square with a squiggly line, located at the top of the timeline panel. Figure, a screenshot of the After Effects interface highlighting the Graph Editor button. It is located in the timeline toolbar. An arrow points to it. The timeline area has been replaced by a large graph grid with a white curve on a dark gray background. If your graph looks like a weird colored mess, right-click anywhere in the graph background and ensure Edit Speed Graph is selected. You should see a hill, a parabola. Here is how to read it: asterisk height equals speed. The higher the line is on the graph, the faster the object is moving. Asterisk left to right equals time. With Easy Ease applied, you see a symmetric hill. It starts at 0 speed, bottom, goes up to max speed, top of the hill, and goes back to 0. To make the animation snappy, we want it to be fast in the middle and slow at the end. Click on the keyframe points at the bottom of the graph. You will see yellow handles extend out. Drag the left handle to the right, and the right handle to the left. You are creating a spike, a steep mountain rather than a rolling hill. Figure, a diagram of the speed graph editor. The curve is manipulated to look like a steep peak in the center. Yellow handles are being pulled inward. Annotations explain, steep slope equals fast acceleration and flat line equals slow no movement. The visual style is sleek and technical. This shape tells After Effects, wait, zoom, slow down. This creates that modern, energetic motion you see in tech reviews and explainer videos. It takes practice, but mastering the graph editor is what separates the users from the artists. Take some time to play with those handles. Break the motion. Make it weird. That is the only way to learn how the physics of After Effects truly works. We have covered the big 5 properties, the logic of keyframes, the magic of F9, and the power of the graph editor. These are the tools you will use every single day. In the next chapter, we are going to start layering these elements together to build complex compositions. Take a break, stretch your legs, and when you are ready, let's see how layers interact with each other. Figure Mind Map Chapter 2, Core Animation Principles, the Big 5, Sad Smiley Anchor Point, A, Sad Smiley Position, P, Sad Smiley Scale, S, Sad Smiley Rotation, R, Sad Smiley Opacity, T, Keyframes, Sad Smiley Stopwatch Icon, Sad Smiley Time and Value, Sad Smiley Interpolation, Easing, Sad Smiley Linear versus Natural, Sad Smiley Easy Ease, F9, Sad Smiley Hourglass Icons, Graph Editor, Sad Smiley Speed Graph, Sad Smiley Height equals Speed, Sad Smiley Bezier Handles.
Chapter 3, Managing Complexity, Layers, Parenting, and Precomposing. Section 3.1, The Layer Stack Hierarchy, How Order Affects Visibility. Section 3.2, Parenting and Null Objects, Linking Elements for Unified Movement. Section 3.3, The Power of Precomposing, Grouping Layers for Cleaner Timelines. Section 3.4 Adjustment Layers, Applying Global Changes to Multiple Elements. In Chapter 2, we focused on getting things moving. You learned the Big 5 properties and set your first keyframes. It is an exciting moment when static assets finally start dancing across the screen. However, as you add more assets, text, backgrounds, shapes, and logos, you will notice something daunting happening at the bottom of your screen. Your timeline is becoming a skyscraper of layers. Scrolling up and down to find that one specific text layer can quickly kill your creative flow. This is the complexity wall that every motion designer hits. The difference between a frustrated beginner and a relaxed professional isn't just animation skill, it is organization. In this chapter, we are going to tame the timeline. We will look at how layers interact, how to control multiple objects with a single switch, and how to pack complex groups into neat little boxes. By the end of this, you won't just be an animator, you will be a project architect. 3.1 The Layer Stack Hierarchy, How Order Affects Visibility. The timeline panel in After Effects works on a very simple physical premise: it is a vertical stack. Think of your layers like a stack of transparency sheets, acetates, on an overhead projector. Whatever is at the top of the stack covers up whatever is underneath it. If you have a massive background layer sitting at position number 1, the very top, it will block visibility for every other layer below it. Figure, a high-resolution UI screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel focused on the layer stack. On the left, a split-screen comparison, side A shows a background layer at the top of the stack blocking a logo layer. Side B shows the logo layer dragged above the background, making it visible. Use bright red arrows to indicate the drag and drop motion. The interface should be dark mode, standard Adobe CC layout. Manipulating the order. To change which object appears in front, you simply click the layer name in the timeline and drag it up or down. You will see a thick blue line appear between layers, indicating where the layer will drop when you release the mouse. While dragging is intuitive, pros rarely use the mouse for this. It is faster to keep your hands on the keyboard. Use these shortcuts to move layers through the stack. Action Windows Shortcut Mac Shortcut. Label colors for sanity. When you have 30 layers that all look like gray bars, you are asking for a headache. To the left of every layer name is a small colored square, the label color. Clicking this square allows you to assign a specific color to that layer. I highly recommend developing a personal system immediately. For example, I always make my text layers orange, my backgrounds blue, and my logos green. This visual coding allows you to scan a timeline and instantly know where your assets are without reading a single name. Figure, close-up macro shot of the After Effects label color menu open. The mouse cursor is hovering over the orange selection. The timeline shows a distinct color-coded system. Text layers are orange, shape layers are blue, and footage is green. The image should convey organization and clarity. 3.2 Parenting and Null Objects, Linking Elements for Unified Movement. Imagine you are animating a car driving across the screen. The car consists of 3 layers: the body, the front wheel, and the back wheel. If you want the car to drive forward, you could set position keyframes for all 3 layers separately. But what if you need to change the timing later? You would have to adjust 3 sets of keyframes. That is tedious and prone to errors. This is where parenting saves the day. Parenting allows you to tell one layer, the child, to follow every move of another layer, the parent, while still keeping its own independence to rotate or scale. The pick whip. To link layers, we use the pick whip. It looks like a small spiral icon in the parent and link column of your timeline. Identify your parent layer, e.g., the car body. Find the child layer, e.g., the front wheel. Click and hold the spiral pick whip icon on the child layer. Drag the line that appears onto the parent layer and release. Figure, a detailed action shot of the pick whip tool in use. The cursor is dragging a blue line from a layer named wheel_frontal up to a layer named car_body. The spiral icon is highlighted. The visual style should be clean and technical, emphasizing the connection between the 2 layers. Now, when you move the car body, the wheels go with it automatically. However, and this is the best part, you can still rotate the wheels to make them spin. The child inherits the parent's position, scale, and rotation, but adds its own transformation on top of it. The magic of null objects. Sometimes, you want to control multiple objects that don't naturally belong to a single main layer. Or perhaps you want to move a group of text layers together without grouping them permanently. Enter the null object. A null object is an invisible layer. It has all the properties of a normal layer, position, scale, rotation, but it never renders in your final video. It is essentially a hidden handle or a controller. To create one, go to the top menu, Layer, New, a null object. Practical workflow, 1. Create a null object and name it controller. 2. Select all your text layers or graphic elements. 3. Use the pick whip to parent them all to the null. 4. Animate the null. Now, you have a single set of keyframes controlling the movement of 10 different layers. It keeps your timeline clean and makes revisions instant. Figure, diagram showing a null object acting as a puppet master. A red square outline represents the invisible null. Dotted lines connect it to 3 separate shape layers, a circle, a square, and a triangle. Arrows indicate motion. As the null moves right, all 3 shapes move right in unison. The background is a simplified AE grid. 3.3 The power of precomposing, grouping layers for cleaner timelines. As your project grows, you might build a complex logo animation that requires 20 layers of shapes and masks. Once that logo animation is done, having those 20 layers sitting in your main timeline is distracting. You need a container. In After Effects, this is called a precomposition, or precomp. Think of precomposing like putting files into a folder on your computer, or packing items into a suitcase. You take a bunch of loose layers, wrap them up, and they appear in your main timeline as a single layer. How to precompose? Select the layers you want to group, hold Shift or Ctrl+CMD to select multiple. Right-click on one of them and choose Precompose. Or press Ctrl+Shift+C. Name your new composition, e.g., logo_animation_comp. Make sure Move All Attributes into the new composition is checked. Figure, a screenshot of the Precompose dialog box in the center of the screen. The focus is on the name field where logo_build is typed. The radio button for Move All Attributes into the new composition is selected. The background shows the main interface slightly blurred to emphasize the modal window. Your 20 layers have now collapsed into one. If you double-click this new layer, After Effects opens a new tab showing you the contents inside. You can edit the insides anytime, then close the tab to return to your main assembly. Pro tip: precomposing is also essential when you want to apply an effect to a group of layers. You cannot drop a drop shadow effect onto 5 separate layers and expect them to cast shadows on each other correctly. By precomposing them first, you apply the shadow to the container, treating the group as one unified image. 3. For adjustment layers, applying global changes to multiple elements. We have discussed moving layers together, parenting, and grouping them, precomposing. But what if you want to change the look of everything at once, like making the whole video black and white, without nesting everything into a precomp? This is the job of an adjustment layer. An adjustment layer is a transparent sheet that forces any effect applied to it to trickle down onto every single layer sitting below it in the stack. To create one, Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. The rose-colored glasses effect. Imagine putting a pair of sunglasses over a camera lens. Everything the camera sees gets tinted. If you place an adjustment layer at the top of your timeline and apply the curves effect or Gaussian blur, every layer beneath it will become color-corrected or blurred. Figure, cross-section visualization of an adjustment layer. The top layer is labeled Adjustment Layer, Blur Effect. Below it are 3 image layers. Arrows show the blurred effect projecting downward, affecting the images below. The visual style should be semi-transparent and glass-like to represent the filter concept. This is incredibly powerful for ** color grading, applying a final look to your entire animation. Asterisk glitch effects, distorting the entire screen for a few frames. Asterisk vignettes, darkening the edges of the complete composition. However, remember the hierarchy rule from section 3.1. An adjustment layer only affects what is below it. If you have a layer on top of the adjustment layer, it will remain unaffected. This allows you to selectively grade backgrounds while keeping your foreground text clean. Author's note: I remember my first aha moment with null objects. I was trying to animate a solar system and was manually keyframing planets orbiting a sun. The math was a nightmare. Once I learned to parent the planet to a null in the center and just rotate the null, the motion became perfect instantly. Managing complexity isn't the sexy part of motion design, but it is the foundation of professional work. A clean timeline leads to a clear mind, and a clear mind creates better animation. In the next chapter, we will finally dive into the toolbox of visual effects, exploring how to style, distort, and enhance the layers we have now so neatly organized. Figure Mind Map, a comprehensive mind map of After Effects organization techniques. Central node, managing complexity. For main branches: 1. Layer hierarchy, nodes, stack order, visual priority, label colors, keyboard shortcuts. 2. Parenting, nodes, parent-child relationship, pickwhip tool, null objects, unified transforms. 3. Precomposing, nodes, grouping layers, the suitcase analogy, attributes, nesting comps. 4. Adjustment layers, nodes, global effects, top-down logic, color grading, filters. The visual style should be clean, branching, and use icons for each major concept.
Chapter 4: Shaping Your Vision, Vector Graphics and Masking. Section 4.1: Drawing with the Pen Tool, Creating Custom Shapes and Paths. Section 4.2: Shape Layer Modifiers, Repeating, Trimming, and Twisting Vectors. Section 4.3: Masking Fundamentals, Hiding and Revealing Parts of an Image. Section 4.4: Modern Track Mats, Using Alpha and Luma to Composite Textures. In Chapter 3, we focused on organization, taming the timeline, and managing complexity. You learned to be a good editor and project manager. Now, it is time to put on your artist's beret. Up until this point, we have primarily moved assets that were created elsewhere: photos, video clips, or Illustrator files. But After Effects is not just a compositor, it is a powerful vector illustration tool in its own right. I remember when I first realized I didn't need to jump back and forth between Photoshop and After Effects to create simple design elements. It was a liberation. Suddenly, I could build, modify, and animate graphics entirely within the software. In this chapter, we are going to master the internal creation tools. We will draw custom geometry, build complex patterns procedurally, and learn the art of hiding and revealing the secret sauce behind effective compositing. 4.1: Drawing with the Pen Tool, Creating Custom Shapes and Paths. The Pen Tool is arguably the most feared tool in the Adobe ecosystem. It feels unintuitive at first. You click, and a line appears. You click and drag, and suddenly the line curves in a way you didn't expect. If you have ever felt like the line is fighting you, you are not alone. However, mastering the Pen Tool is non-negotiable for motion graphics. It is the key to drawing custom shapes and creating motion paths for objects to follow. The golden rule: click versus drag. The behavior of the Pen Tool, G on your keyboard, changes based entirely on your mouse action. Clicking, tap and release creates a corner vertex. This creates straight lines with sharp angles. Think of this like a game of connect the dots. Clicking and dragging creates a smooth vertex with Bezier handles. These handles pull the line into a curve, acting like magnets. Figure: detailed technical illustration of an After Effects composition window showing a shape path. The visual highlights three specific vertex types: a square corner point, a smooth point with balanced handles, and a broken point with independent handles. Labels clarify click to create sharp corners and click plus drag to create curves. The mouse cursor is visible hovering over a handle. Modifying your path on the fly. The frustration usually sets in when you place a point in the wrong spot or curve it the wrong way. Do not delete the whole path. Use your modifier keys. Control, CMD on Mac while the pen tool is active. Holding this key temporarily switches to the selection tool. You can move points you just placed without changing tools. Alt, Option on Mac, this is the Convert Vertex tool. If you click a smooth point, it snaps to a sharp corner. If you click and drag a corner, it pulls out handles to make it smooth. Practical exercise, drawing a simple wave. Let's try a quick exercise to get the feel of the physics. Select the pen tool from the top toolbar. Make sure no layers are selected in your timeline. Click in the empty gray space. Click once on the left side of the composition viewer. Move to the center, click, and drag to the right. You will see the line curve. Move to the right side, click, and drag to the right again to complete the wave. Figure, a split-screen screenshot. Left side shows the initial click and drag action creating the first arch of a wave. Right side shows the completed sine wave shape with the fill disabled and a bright 10px stroke enabled. Annotations imply the direction of the mouse drag. If the shape fills with color and covers your line, look at the top tool menu. Click the word fill and select the none icon, the white box with a red diagonal line. Then, click the word stroke and choose a solid color. 4.2 Shape layer modifiers, repeating, trimming, and twisting vectors. One of the distinct advantages of After Effects shape layers over Illustrator vectors is that they are procedural. This means we can apply mathematical operations to them to generate complex geometry without drawing it manually. These operations are found in the Add menu, tucked away inside the shape layer properties. The magic of trim paths. If you want to animate a line drawing itself on screen, like a route on a map or a neon signature, you need trim paths. Create a shape layer with a stroke, like the wave we just drew. Twirl down the layer in the timeline. Click the small Add button, circle with a play icon, next to the contents label. Select Trim Paths. Figure, close-up screenshot of the After Effects timeline layer stack. The shape layer is expanded. The Add menu is open, creating a drop-down list. The cursor is highlighting Trim Paths. Other options like Repeater and Wiggle Paths are visible. Once added, twirl down the new Trim Paths property. You will see Start, End, and Offset. Change the end value from 100% to 0%. The line disappears. Click the stopwatch next to End to set a keyframe. Move forward 2 seconds and set End back to 100%. Play it back. Your line now draws itself perfectly. This is a staple technique for HUDs, heads-up displays, typography, and map animations. The repeater. The repeater does exactly what it says, but with a twist. It duplicates your shape and creates a virtual array. If you draw a single small circle and add a repeater, you initially get 3 circles in a line. But if you dive into the repeater transform properties, you can change the position to 0, 0 and increase the rotation. Suddenly, those circles form a perfect ring or a burst pattern. This is how motion designers create complex, kaleidoscopic backgrounds using only one simple shape layer. It keeps your project light and renders fast. 4.3 Masking fundamentals, hiding and revealing parts of an image. Here is a point of confusion that trips up almost everyone. Masks and shapes use the exact same tools. If a layer is selected and you use the rectangle or pen tool, you create a mask. If no layer is selected and you use those tools, you create a new shape layer. Memorize this distinction. If you are trying to draw a new square but keep cutting a hole in your footage, it's because your footage layer was selected. The cookie cutter concept. Think of a mask as a digital cookie cutter. When you draw a mask on a video layer, After Effects looks at that shape and asks, what do I do with the pixels inside this shape? By default, the mode is set to Add, meaning it keeps the pixels inside and removes everything else. Figure, a side-by-side comparison. Image A shows a full video frame of a landscape. Image B shows the same layer with a circular mask applied, revealing only the center of the landscape against a black background. The Mask 1 property in the timeline is highlighted showing Add mode. Feather and expansion. Masks are rarely perfect immediately. Usually, A hard edge looks fake. Twirl down your layer -masks -mask 1. You will see. Mask feather softens the edge of the mask. Essential for blending layers. Mask expansion grows or shrinks the mask area without changing the shape path. Pro tip: if you want to highlight a specific subject in a video, duplicate your video layer. On the top copy, draw a mask around the subject. Now you can apply effects, like brightening or color correction, to only the top layer. The subject will pop out, perfectly blended with the original footage below. 4.4 Modern track mats, using alpha and luma to composite textures. Masks are attached to the layer they affect. But what if you want to use a complex animation, like a splattering ink blot, to reveal a text layer? You can't easily draw that with a mask. This is where track mats come in. A track mat uses the visual information of one layer to define the transparency of another layer. The new workflow, selectable track mats. In older versions of After Effects, the matte layer had to be directly on top of the fill layer. This created messy timelines. As of the recent updates, 2023 and later, we have a much better system. Let's say you have a text layer and an ink splash video. You want the text to appear inside the ink splash. Place both layers in your timeline. Their order does not strictly matter anymore, but organization helps. Look for the TRK mat, track mat, column in the timeline switches. If you don't see it, press F4 to toggle your switches modes. On your text layer, grab the pick whip icon, the little spiral, in the TRK mat column. Drag it and connect it to the ink splash video. Figure, close-up screenshot of the timeline columns focusing on the TRK mat section. The cursor is dragging the pick whip, spiral icon, from a text layer to a video layer named ink_splash.mp4. The interface clearly shows the connection line between the two layers. The ink splash layer automatically turns off, becomes invisible, and its shape now cuts out the text. Alpha versus Luma. Once you link a mat, you will see a small icon appearing in the TRK mat box. You can click this to toggle between modes. Alpha mat uses the transparency of the mat layer. Example, a PNG logo with a transparent background. Luma mat uses the brightness of the mat layer. White equals 100% visible, black equals 0% visible. When to use which? Use alpha when your mat is a shape or a transparent graphic. Use Luma when your mat is a video file, like ink, smoke, or fire, that is black and white but doesn't have transparency data. By mastering shape layers, masks, and track mats, you have graduated from simply moving pictures around to sculpting the visuals yourself. You now have the power to create custom UI elements, blend footage seamlessly, and texturize your designs. In the next chapter, we will look at how to take these shapes and compositions and manipulate time itself. Figure Mindmap, Chapter 4 Concepts, Root, Shaping Your Vision, Branch, Pen Tool, Node, Click equals Corner, Node, Drag equals Curve, Node, Alt-Op to break handles, Branch, Shape Modifiers, Node, Procedural Non-Destructive, Node, Trim Paths for Line Animation, Node, Repeater for Patterns, Branch, Masking, Node, Selected Layer equals Mask, Node, Deselected Layer equals Shape, Node, Add vs Subtract Modes, Node, Feather for Blending, Branch, Track Mats, Node, Use one layer to cut. Another, Node, Pick Whip Workflow, Node, Alpha uses transparency, Node, Luma uses brightness.
Chapter 5, Kinetic Typography, Making Text Speak Louder. Section 5.1, the Character and Paragraph Panels, Formatting for Readability. Section 5.2, Text Animators, Controlling Characters Individually Without Keyframes. Section 5.3, Using Range Selectors to Sequence Text Appearance. Section 5.4, Saving Time with Text Animation Presets and Browsing Bridge. In the previous chapters, we built our foundation. We learned the interface, mastered the Big 5 transform properties, organized our timelines, and even started creating our own vector shapes. Now, we are tackling one of the most critical skills in a motion designer's toolkit, kinetic typography. Text in motion design isn't just about reading, it is about feeling. A static word on a screen conveys information. A word that slams into place, jitters nervously, or elegantly fades in character by character conveys emotion. It turns type into a voice. I remember my early days trying to animate a sentence by splitting every single letter onto its own layer. I had 30 layers for one sentence, and I was manually keyframing the position of each one. It was a nightmare. I wasted hours doing what I am about to show you how to do in minutes. In this chapter, we are going to unlock the hidden power of the After Effects text engine. It is a system unique to AE, different from the standard layer transforms we used in Chapter 2. Once you understand how it works, you will be able to make your text dance, shout, and whisper with incredible efficiency. 5.1 The character and paragraph panels, formatting for readability. Before we make things move, we must make them look good. Design always dictates animation. If your typography is poorly spaced or hard to read, no amount of smooth animation will save it. After Effects handles text similarly to Photoshop or Illustrator, but there are a few gotchas specific to video that we need to address. To begin, ensure your workspace is ready by opening the character and paragraph panels usually found on the right side of your interface. Figure, high-resolution UI screenshot of the After Effects workspace. The focus is on the right-hand dock, specifically highlighting the character panel and paragraph panel. Callouts point to the font family, tracking, kerning, and leading fields. The rest of the interface is dimmed slightly to emphasize these panels. Choosing the right font and weight. Video compression can be brutal on thin fonts. When choosing a typeface for motion graphics, especially for YouTube or social media where screens are small, opt for fonts with clear legibility and decent weight. When you select the Type tool, Ctrl+T or CMD+T, and click in the composition window, you create a point text layer. This is great for titles. If you click and drag, you create paragraph text, which defines a bounding box, better for longer subtitles or body copy. The importance of tracking and kerning. In motion, the space between letters, tracking, often needs to be slightly wider than in print. Motion blur can cause tightly packed letters to bleed together visually. Use the tracking value in the character panel to open up your text slightly. I often add a value of 10 to 50 just to let the letters breathe. Figure, split screen comparison graphic. The left side shows text with tight tracking, 0 value, appearing muddy with motion blur applied. The right side shows text with loose tracking, 50 value, looking crisp and legible with the same motion blur. Green check mark on the right, red X on the left. Pro tip, always set your paragraph alignment, left, center, right, before you start animating. If you change alignment after you have animated the position, your text will jump to a new location, and you will have to fix your keyframes. 5.2 Text animators, controlling characters individually without keyframes. This is where the paradigm shifts. In Chapter 2, if we wanted to scale a layer, we pressed S and adjusted the scale property. This scaled the entire word as a single image. But what if you want the letters to scale up one by one? You might be tempted to break the text apart, but please don't. After Effects has a dedicated system called text animators. These allow you to affect individual characters within a single text layer without splitting them up. Finding that animate button. Twirl down the arrow next to your text layer in the timeline. You will see a small, unassuming circle with an arrow next to the word text. This is the animate menu. It is easy to miss, but it is the gateway to kinetic typography. Figure, close-up macro screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel. A bright colored arrow points to the small animate button, a circle with a triangle inside, located to the right of the text property group on a text layer. A drop-down menu is open showing options like position, scale, rotation, and capacity. Adding your first animator. Let's try a classic setup. We want our letters to fall into place. Click the animate button. Select position. You will see a new group appear in your timeline called Animator 1. Inside that, you have a range selector and a position property. Here is the crucial concept. the value you set here is the starting point of the animation, not the final resting place. If you lower the Y position, the second number, by 100 pixels, your text drops down. But we haven't added keyframes yet. We have just told After Effects, I want the characters in this layer to be 100 pixels lower than they naturally are. Figure, UI screenshot showing the timeline with Animator 1 expanded. The position value is set to 0, 100. In the composition window, the text is shown shifted down from its original anchor point, indicated by a ghosted outline of where the text used to be. Now, how do we make them move back to their original spot? We don't keyframe the position. We keyframe the range selector. 5.3 Using range selectors to sequence text appearance. The range selector is the engine that drives the properties we just set. It determines which letters get the instruction we just created. Think of the range selector as a spotlight. Asterisk everything inside the spotlight gets the effect, move down 100 pixels. Asterisk everything outside the spotlight stays normal, at its original position. The start, end, and offset properties. Twirl down range selector 1. You will see three properties, start, end, and offset. Start, 0% the selection starts at the beginning of the word. End, 100% the selection ends at the last letter. By default, 0% to 100% means all letters are selected. This is why your whole word moved down. To animate the text rising up letter by letter, 1. Ensure your time indicator is at the start of the timeline, midnight. 2. Click the stopwatch next to start. Keep it at 0%. 3. Move forward 2 seconds. 4. Change start to 100%. Watch what happens. As the start value increases, the spotlight of the effect moves past the letters. As the selector passes a letter, that letter is released from the down 100 pixels instruction and snaps back to its original layout position. Figure, 3-panel sequence diagram illustrating the range selector concept. Panel 1, start, 0%, all letters are shifted down, represented in red. Panel 2, start, 50%, the first half of the word has snapped up to original position, blue, the second half is still down, red. Panel 3, start, 100%, all letters are in the original position, blue. Arrows indicate the upward motion. Smoothing the motion, the Advanced tab. If you play back your animation now, it might look a bit robotic. The letters snap into place one by one. To make it organic, look for the Advanced tab inside the range selector. Change the shape from the square to ramp up. Now, instead of a hard-on/off switch, the effect flows through the text like a wave. You might need to adjust your offset keyframes to get the timing right, but the motion will immediately feel more professional and fluid. 5 point for saving time with text animation presets and browsing bridge. While building custom animators gives you ultimate control, you don't always need to build a typewriter effect from scratch. After Effects ships with a massive library of text animation presets that are essentially prepackaged combinations of the tools we just learned. Using the Effects and Presets panel. Go to the Effects and Presets panel, usually on the right. Open the Animation Presets folder, then the Text folder. You will see categories like Blurs, Organic, and Tracking. To apply one, simply ensure your text layer is selected and double-click a preset. Or, drag and drop the preset onto your layer. Warning, if your time indicator is in the middle of the timeline, the preset will start the animation there. Always place your time indicator where you want the action to begin before applying a preset. Browsing with Adobe Bridge. The names of the presets, like reining characters in, are descriptive, but it is hard to know exactly what they look like. This is where Adobe Bridge comes in. In After Effects, go to the top menu, Animation, Browse Presets. This opens Adobe Bridge. Navigate to the Text folder. Click on a preset, and look at the Preview panel in Bridge. It will play a sample video of the animation. Figure, UI screenshot of Adobe Bridge. The interface displays a grid of text animation preset files. On the right side, a preview pane shows a small animated sample of the text effect evaporate. An arrow indicates the path from the After Effects menu animation browse presets to this window. Once you find a preset you like in Bridge, just double-click it. It will automatically jump back to After Effects and apply that animation to your selected text layer. This workflow is a massive time saver. You can use a preset as a base, then press U to reveal the keyframes and tweak the timing or properties to fit your specific project perfectly. We have now given your text a voice. Whether you are building custom animators for a specific brand look or using presets to quickly title a YouTube video, remember that readability comes first, and motion provides the emotion. In the next chapter, we are going to step away from the timeline and look at the bigger picture, working with effects and color correction to give your footage that cinematic polish. Figure Mind Map Chapter 5, Kinetic Typography Overview, Kinetic Typography, 5.1 Formatting, Character Panel, Tracking vs Kerning, Font Choice, Paragraph Panel, Alignment Importance, 5.2 Text Animators, Concept, Vector vs Pixel Scale, Animate Menu Button, Properties, Position, Scale, Opacity, 5.3 Range Selectors, the Engine, Start End, Offset, Advanced, Shape, Square vs Ramp, Smoothness, 5. For Presets, Workflow, Effects and Presets Panel, Adobe Bridge Preview. Customization, press U to reveal.
Chapter 6, Visual Alchemy, Effects, Presets, and Color. Section 6.1, The Effects Library, Searching, Applying, and Stacking Plugins. Section 6.2, Color Correction Basics, Using Lumetri Color within After Effects. Section 6.3, Stylizing Footage, Glows, Blurs, and Glitch Effects. Section 6.4, Blending Modes, Creative Ways to Mix Layers and Textures. If the previous chapters were about building the skeleton and muscles of your motion graphics, this chapter is about adding the soul. We have covered movement, organization, and design, but your composition might still look a bit flat. It lacks atmosphere, mood, and texture. This is where we enter the world of visual alchemy. In Adobe After Effects, effects are the distinct chemical compounds we mix together to turn basic footage into cinematic gold. Whether you want to fix a white balance mistake, make a logo glow like neon, or turn pristine text into a glitchy mess, this is where the transformation happens. I often tell my students that animation provides the timing, but effects provide the feeling. A slow fade-out feels vastly different from a TV shutdown glitch. In this chapter, we are going to explore the Effects and Presets panel, master color correction with Lumetri, and learn how to blend layers together to create rich, textured visuals. Let's start cooking. 6.1 The Effects Library, Searching, Applying, and Stacking Plugins. The Effects and Presets panel contains hundreds of tools. When you first scroll through it, it looks like an endless list of confusing technical terms like CC ball action or calculations. It is easy to feel overwhelmed, but the truth is, you will likely rely on a core set of about 20 effects for 90% of your work. The most efficient way to use this panel is not by scrolling, but by searching. The search bar is the fastest route between your idea and the screen. Figure, high-resolution UI close-up of the Adobe After Effects Effects and Presets panel. The cursor is hovering over the search bar, typing Gauss and the list filters down to Gaussian blur highlighted in blue. The interface is dark mode, clean, and sharp. Applying effects. There are two primary ways to apply an effect to a layer. The first is to drag the effect from the panel directly onto the layer in the composition window or the timeline. The second, and often faster method, is to select your layer and double-click the effect name in the list. Once applied, the Project panel usually switches to the Effect Controls panel. This is your laboratory. Here, you can tweak the intensity, radius, color, and behavior of the effect. The importance of stacking order. Here is a concept that trips up many beginners: the order of effects matters. After Effects processes layers from top to bottom, and it processes effects on a single layer from top to bottom as well. Imagine you have a text layer. If you apply a distort effect and then a blur effect, the distortion gets blurred. If you apply the blur first and then the distort, you are distorting a blurry image. The results look completely different. Figure, side-by-side comparison diagram. On the left, a text layer labeled A shows crisp distortion edges because distort was applied after blur. On the right, a text layer labeled B looks muddy because blur was applied after distortion. Arrows indicate the downward flow of processing logic in the Effect Controls panel. Think of the Effect Controls panel as a waterfall. The image flows into the top effect, gets modified, flows into the next one, and so on. If your look feels wrong, try dragging your effects into a different order. 6.2 Color Correction Basics, using Lumetri color within After Effects. For a long time, color correction in After Effects was a patchwork of different obsolete effects. Then, Adobe brought the powerful Lumetri color engine from Premiere Pro directly into After Effects. It is now the industry standard for fixing and styling color within the app. Color correction serves two purposes: correction, fixing mistakes, and grading, creating a mood. We usually start with correction to ensure our blacks are black and our whites are white. The Lumetri workflow. To start, search for Lumetri color in your effects panel and apply it to your footage. You will see a robust interface appear in your effect controls, divided into sections like Basic Correction, Creative, and Curves. Start with the Basic Correction tab. Use the white balance selector, the eyedropper, to click on something in your video that should be white. This instantly neutralizes color casts. Next, adjust the exposure and contrast to ensure your subject is visible and the image pops. Figure, split-screen screenshot of a video clip within the composition window. The left half is before, flat, washed out, slightly blue tint. The right half is after, vibrant, proper contrast, warm skin tones. The Lumetri color effect control panel is visible on the left side, showing adjustments to temperature and exposure. Using creative LUTs. Once your footage is balanced, you can move to the Creative tab. This is where you can apply lookup tables, LUTs. Think of a LUT as a sophisticated filter like Instagram but with much higher mathematical precision. You can browse through the included looks to instantly give your footage a western, noir, or cold blue aesthetic. However, a word of caution, use the intensity slider. Most presets are too heavy at 100%, dialing them back to 40 to 60% often yields a more professional result. 6.3 Stylizing footage, glows, blurs, and glitch effects. Now that our footage is color corrected, let's have some fun. Stylization is where motion graphics begin to feel magical. We will focus on three staples of the industry: glows, blurs, and glitches. The art of the glow. Beginners often slap the standard glow effect on a layer and move on. However, the default settings can look harsh and digital. To get that lush, organic sci-fi look, the secret is usually to lower the threshold, so more parts of the image glow, and drastically increase the glow radius. A pro tip is to duplicate the glow effect, CMD plus D Ctrl plus D. Keep the first glow tight, low radius, and make the second glow wide, high radius. This creates a hot core with a soft falloff, mimicking how real light interacts with a camera lens. Figure, detailed infographic-style illustration showing a glow stack. Step 1 shows a text layer with no glow. Step 2 shows a tight, intense glow. Step 3 shows a wide, soft diffuse glow added on top. The final result creates a lightsaber-style neon effect. Strategic blurring. Blur isn't just for hiding license plates. It is a tool for directing the viewer's eye. We naturally look at what is sharp. By applying a camera lens blur, which looks more realistic than Gaussian blur, to a background element, you force the audience to focus on your foreground text. The glitch aesthetic. Glitches are incredibly popular in tech-focused motion graphics. While you can buy plugins, building one yourself is a rite of passage. The native recipe involves two effects: fractal noise and displacement map. Create a solid layer and apply fractal noise. Animate the evolution property so the noise crackles. Pre-compose that noise layer, move it into its own container. Apply displacement map to your footage and point it at the noise layer. Suddenly, Your footage tears and warps based on the brightness values of the noise. It is chaotic, controllable, and looks fantastic. 6.4 Blending modes, creative ways to mix layers and textures. If you have ever used Photoshop, you are likely familiar with blending modes. In After Effects, they function identically, allowing you to mix a layer with the layers beneath it based on mathematical formulas. You can find the mode column in your timeline. If you don't see it, press F4 on your keyboard to toggle your column switches. While there are many modes, you only need to memorize the big three to start. The big three: multiply, screen, and overlay. Multiply. This mode keeps the dark pixels and makes white pixels transparent. It is perfect for overlaying textures like paper grain or ink splatters onto a background. It darkens the image. Screen. The opposite of multiply. It keeps the light pixels and makes black pixels transparent. Use this for fire, sparks, lens flares, or light leaks that were shot on a black background. Overlay. This adds contrast. It multiplies the darks and screens the lights. It is excellent for blending a texture into a photo to make it look gritty and integrated, rather than just sitting on top. Figure. Visual matrix showing 3 examples of blending modes. Top row shows source image, a lens flare on black, and background, a city street. Row 2 shows multiply resulting in a dark mess. Row 3 shows screen resulting in the flare perfectly composite over the street. Row 4 shows overlay resulting in high contrast integration. Blending modes are the secret sauce of texturing. If your vector shapes look too clean and digital, drag in an image of concrete or old film grain, place it on top, and set it to overlay or soft light. Instantly, your sterile graphic feels like it exists in the real world. Summary. We have covered a lot of ground in this chapter. We learned that the effects panel is a library best navigated by search, not scrolling. We discovered that the order in which you stack effects changes the result. Visualize that waterfall. We used Lumetri to color grade, added style with glows and glitches, and used blending modes to weave textures together. Don't feel pressured to memorize every setting in the Effect Controls panel. The best motion designers are essentially mad scientists. They turn knobs, break things, and experiment until they find a visual reaction that looks cool. In the next chapter, we are going to move from 2D into the next dimension. We will explore 3D space, cameras, and lighting to give your scenes real depth. Figure Mind Map Chapter 6. Visual Alchemy, Central Node, Visual Alchemy, Node, Effects Library, Subnode, Search Bar, Dash, Don't Scroll, Search, Subnode, Applying, Dash, Drag and Drop Double Click, Subnode, Stacking Order, Dash, Top-Down Processing Waterfall Analogy, Node, Color Correction, Subnode, Lumetri Color, Leaf, Basic Correction, Dash, White Balance Tone, Leaf, Creative Tab, Dash, LUT's Look Development, Node, Stylization, Subnode, Glow, Dash, Low Threshold plus High Radius, Sub. Node, Blur, Dash, Camera Lens Blur vs Gaussian, Subnode, Glitch, Dash, Fractal Noise plus Displacement Map, Node, Blending Modes, Subnode, Multiply, Dash, Darken Transparency for White, Subnode, Screen, Dash, Lighten Transparency for Black, Subnode, Overlay, Dash, Contrast Texturing.
Chapter 7. Controlling Time, Speed Ramps and Freeze Frames. Section 7.1. Time Stretching, Slowing Down and Speeding Up Footage. Section 7.2. Time Remapping, Customizing Variable Speed Changes. Section 7.3. Frame Blending and Pixel Motion, Smoothing Out Slow Motion. Section 7.4. Freezing Action, Creating Static Moments from Video Clips. In Chapter 6, we explored visual alchemy, adding effects and color to create mood. We made things glow, distort, and shine. Now, we are going to control the 4th dimension of your composition, time itself. As a video editor or motion designer, you are a time traveler. You have the power to stretch a fleeting second into a dramatic minute or condense an hour-long process into a snappy 10-second montage. Controlling time is not just about making a clip fit a gap, it is about directing the viewer's attention. Think of an action movie. The hero jumps off a building. In reality, that takes 2 seconds. In the movie, time slows down mid-air so you can see the determination on their face, then snaps back to real time for the landing. That creates impact. In this chapter, we will master the tools that allow you to bend time. We will cover basic stretching, advanced speed ramps, the technology needed to make slow motion look smooth, and how to freeze a moment entirely. 7.1 Time stretching, slowing down and speeding up footage. The simplest way to alter the speed of a clip is time stretching. This creates a uniform speed change across the entire layer. It is perfect when you simply need a clip to play twice as fast or last twice as long without any fancy variations. This is often the go-to method for background textures or looping animations that are moving just a bit too frantically for your scene. By slowing them down uniformly, you can make a chaotic background feel elegant. To access this, you don't need to dive into complex menus. It is right there in the layer options. Applying a time stretch. Select the layer you want to adjust in your timeline. Go to the top menu bar, select Layer Time Stretch. A dialog box will appear showing the stretch factor. Figure, a high-resolution screenshot of the Adobe After Effects Time Stretch dialog box overlaid on the interface. The dialog is centered, highlighting the stretch factor input field currently set to 100%. A cursor is hovering over the new duration field. The background shows a blurred timeline with a selected video layer. Lighting is clean and technical, emphasizing the UI elements. Here is where the math works differently than you might expect. In the stretch factor box, *100% is normal speed. *200% makes the clip twice as long, slower. *50% makes the clip half as long, faster. Think of stretch as physical film tape. If you stretch the tape to be 200% of its original length, it takes longer to play through, resulting in slow motion. If you compress it to 50%, it plays through quickly. Type in your desired percentage and click OK. You will see the layer bar in the timeline physically expand or contract based on your input. 7.2 Time remapping, customizing variable speed changes. Time stretching is great, but it is a blunt instrument. What if you want that matrixed effect? The one where a punch starts fast, slows down to a crawl at the point of impact, and then speeds up again? That is called a speed ramp. To achieve this, we use time remapping. Unlike time stretch, this allows us to use keyframes to tell After Effects exactly which frame of video should play at what specific time. This feature unlocks complete creative freedom. You can even make footage play in reverse, then forward again, just by manipulating keyframes. Enabling time remapping. Right-click your video layer in the timeline. Select Time, enable time remapping. You will see 2 keyframes appear, one at the start of the layer and one at the end. Figure, a close-up screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel. A video layer named action_clip.mp4 is expanded to show the time remapping property. 2 diamond-shaped keyframes are visible, one at the very beginning, midnight, and one at the end of the clip layer. The property value reads in timecode format. The interface style is dark mode, typical of Creative Cloud apps. When time remapping is active, the length of the layer becomes infinite. If you drag the end of the layer out, the video will freeze on the last frame because the last keyframe marks the end of the footage. Creating a speed ramp. To create a speed ramp, fast-slow-fast, follow this workflow. Move your playhead to where the action, like a jump, begins. Create a keyframe on the time remapping property. Move the playhead to where the action ends, the landing. Create another keyframe. Now, drag these 2 inner keyframes further apart on the timeline. By increasing the distance between these keyframes, you are telling After Effects, take this small section of video and make it take longer to play. That equals slow motion. Smoothing the ramp with the graph editor. If you just move keyframes, the speed change will be abrupt, a hard cut from fast to slow. To make it cinematic, we need curves. Select the time remapping property. Click the graph editor icon, the squiggly line button, at the top of the timeline. Ensure you are viewing the edit speed graph, right-click the graph to check. You will see a line representing speed. Drag the Bezier handles to create a U shape or a smooth curve. Figure A detailed diagram of the After Effects graph editor specifically showing a speed graph curve for time remapping. The curve starts high, fast, dips low into a valley, slow motion, and rises back up, fast. Yellow Bezier handles are being manipulated to smooth the transition. The background grid represents frame rates per second, annotations point to ease in and ease out points. This visual representation is powerful. The higher the graph line, the faster the video plays. The closer the line gets to 0, the closer the video is to freezing. 7.3 frame blending and pixel motion, smoothing out slow motion. Here is a reality check. If you shoot video at 30 frames per second, FPS, and you slow it down to 50% speed, you are effectively asking After Effects to play 15 frames per second. The result? The video will look like a slideshow. It will stutter and look choppy because there simply aren't enough frames to fill the time. You can't create data that wasn't captured by the camera, or can you? After Effects has two magical switches called frame blending that can fake smooth slow motion. The 3 states of frame blending. You toggle frame blending by clicking the film strip icon box next to your layer in the timeline switch column. It cycles through 3 states. Off, no icon standard playback. If you slow footage down, it duplicates frames. This looks choppy. Frame mix, jagged film icon. This creates a ghosting effect. It dissolves the previous frame into the next one to fill the gap. It is smooth but can look blurry. Pixel motion, smooth arrow icon. This is the advanced method. After Effects analyzes the movement of pixels and generates brand new frames that never existed. Figure, a split-screen comparison visual. On the left, a zoomed-in section of a video frame showing frame mix ghosting, double exposure look. On the right, the same frame using pixel motion showing a clean, generated image. In the center, the After Effects timeline toggle switch is shown, highlighting the specific icon for pixel motion, a film strip with a swooping arrow, dot. When to use which? Frame mix renders fast. Use it for simple motion or background blurs where clarity isn't critical. Pixel motion, often called optical float in other software, looks incredible but is computationally heavy. Be careful, if your footage has too much motion blur or chaotic movement, pixel motion can create warping artifacts where the computer guesses wrong. Pro tip, always enable the Enable Frame Blending Master switch at the top of your timeline panel to see the results. If you don't click the master switch, the layer switches won't do anything. 7 point for freezing action, creating static moments from video clips. Sometimes the most powerful motion is no motion at all. You might want to freeze a video on a specific frame to overlay text, introduce a character, or emphasize a funny reaction. Freezing is essentially extreme time stretching, stretching one single frame to infinity. The quick freeze method. If you want to turn a whole layer into a still image based on the current time, move your playhead to the exact frame you want to keep. Right-click the layer. Select Time Freeze Frame. The entire layer is now a still image of that specific moment. You can drag the ends of the clip to make it last as long as you need. Figure, a screenshot of the After Effects context menu, right-click menu, opened over a video layer. The mouse cursor is hovering over the Time submenu, which is expanded to show freeze frame highlighted in blue. The background shows a video frame of a skateboarder mid-air, indicating the moment being frozen. The freeze on last frame trick. A common editing technique is to have a video play out and then freeze on the final shot while the credits roll or a logo appears. Right-click the layer. Select Time Freeze on last frame. This automatically adds time remapping and sets a hold keyframe at the very end. The video plays normally until the last frame, then holds that image forever. It is a massive time saver for outros and end cards. Summary. You have now taken control of the timeline. We started by stretching time uniformly to fit our needs, then graduated to time remapping for dynamic speed ramps. We learned how to smooth out that slow motion using pixel motion and how to stop time entirely with freeze frames. These tools are not just technical utilities, they are storytelling devices. A speed ramp can add energy to a dull clip. A freeze frame can add humor or emphasis. In the next chapter, we are going to look at something often neglected by visual artists but crucial for a complete experience: audio. We will learn how to visualize sound and sync our motion to the beat. Figure Mind Map Chapter 7, Controlling Time, Root, Controlling Time, Branch, Time Stretching, Node, Uniform Speed Change, Node, Layer of Time Time Stretch, Node, Percentage Math, 200% equals slower, 50% equals faster, Branch, Time Remapping, Node, Variable Speed, Node, Keyframes for Time, Node, Speed Ramps, Fast Slow Fast, Node, Graph Editor is essential, Branch, Frame Blending, Node, Fixing Choppy Slow-Mo, Node, Frame Mix, Ghosting a Blur, Node, Pixel Motion, AI Generation Optical Flow. Branch, Freeze Frames, Node, Static Moments, Node, Right-Click Freeze Frame, Node, Freeze on Last Frame for Out-ROS.
Chapter 8, Entering the Third Dimension, Cameras and Lights. Section 8.1, The 3D Switch, Converting 2D Layers into 3D Space. Section 8.2, Working with Virtual Cameras, Depth of Field and Focus Distances. Section 8.3, Lighting Your Scene, Spot, Point, Ambient, and Parallel Lights. Section 8.4, The Multiview Workspace, Navigating 3D Space from top, side, and active angles. In Chapter 7, we mastered the fourth dimension, time. We learned to freeze it, stretch it, and warp it to serve our narrative. Now, we are going to break the glass of your monitor and reach inside. We are tackling space. For the first 7 chapters, we played on a flat surface. Like moving pieces of paper on a desk, our layers only went up, down, left, or right. But After Effects has a secret engine under the hood that turns that flat desk into a deep stage. Entering 3D space is often the most intimidating leap for a new motion designer. Suddenly, your X and Y axes are joined by a mysterious Z axis. Things disappear, lights don't work the way you expect, and navigating feels disjointed. Do not worry. I remember the first time I turned a layer into 3D, I felt like I had lost control of my composition. But once you understand the logic, which is remarkably similar to the real world, you unlock the ability to create cinematic depth, parallax, and immersion that 2D simply cannot achieve. In this chapter, we will build a diorama. We will convert flat layers into 3D objects, film them with virtual cameras, and light them like a film set. 8.1 The 3D Switch, Converting 2D Layers into 3D Space. The gateway to the third dimension is surprisingly small. It is a tiny cube icon in your timeline switches. Clicking this doesn't instantly extrude your text into a block, that's a different engine. Rather, it allows your flat layer to exist in deep space. Think of it like holding a postcard. In 2D, the postcard is taped to a wall. You can slide it up or sideways. When you turn on the 3D switch, you unstitch it from the wall. Now, you can push it away from you, pull it closer, or rotate it so you can see its edge. The Z-axis and the gizmo. Figure, ultra-detailed screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel focusing on the layer switches. Highlight the 3D layer switch, the cube icon, being toggled on for a text layer. Show the transform properties expanded, revealing the new Z rotation and orientation fields, and the position property split into X, Y, and Z values. The interface should be dark mode, high contrast, clean UI. Once you click that cube icon, look at your composition panel. You will see a colorful set of arrows appear on your layer. This is the 3D gizmo. The red arrow represents X, left right. The green arrow represents Y, up down. The blue arrow is your new best friend, the Z-axis, near far. Dragging the blue arrow pushes the layer further away into the distance or pulls it right up to the lens. This is true depth, not just scaling a layer down to fake it. Layer ordering in 3D. Figure, Close-up diagram of the 3D axis gizmo on a selected layer in the composition viewer. Label the red arrow X, horizontal, the green arrow Y, vertical, and the blue arrow Z, depth distance. Show a semi-transparent grid in the background to represent 3D space perspective. Here is a critical concept that trips up veterans and beginners alike. In the 2D world, layer order is king. Layer 1 always sits on top of layer 2. In 3D space, distance is king. If layer 5 is positioned closer to the camera, a negative Z value, than layer 1, layer 5 will appear in front. This allows you to arrange elements organically, like furniture in a room, rather than shuffling layers in a stack. 8.2 Working with virtual cameras, depth of field and focus distances. Now that we have depth, looking at it through a static screen feels limiting. We need a camera. The After Effects camera mimics a real-world DSLR, complete with aperture, focal length, and blur. To add a camera, go to Layer New Camera. You will be greeted with a dialog box full of optical terms. 1-node versus 2-node cameras. Figure, screenshot of the camera settings dialog box in After Effects. Highlight the type drop-down, 1-node versus 2-node, and the Enable Depth of Field checkbox. Callouts explaining focal length, e.g., 50 mm, and aperture dot. You have two choices for camera behavior. 1-node camera, imagine holding a camera in your hand. If you turn left, the camera looks left. It rotates around itself. This is great for handheld looks or drone-style flyovers. 2-node camera, this adds a point of interest, POI. Imagine a camera on a tripod continuously staring at a specific actor. Even if you move the camera physically to the left, it will swivel to keep staring at that actor. I recommend starting with a 2-node camera. It makes orbiting around text or logos much more intuitive because the camera stays locked on your subject. Mastering depth of field, DOF. This is the Hollywood look everyone wants. Depth of field blurs objects that are not in focus, guiding the viewer's eye. To make this work, you need 3 things. 1. Enable depth of field in the camera settings. 2. Set your focus distance to match the Z position of your subject. 3. Increase the aperture. Think of aperture like the pupil of your eye. A low number, small pupil, keeps everything sharp. A high number, dilated pupil, creates a shallow focus, where the background turns into creamy blur, bokeh. Figure, a side-by-side comparison of a 3D scene with text layers at different distances. Left side, depth of field OFF, everything sharp. Right side, depth of field ON with high aperture, foreground text sharp, background text heavily blurred. Arrows indicating the focus plane. 8.3 Lighting your scene, spot, point, ambient, and parallel lights. A 3D layer without light looks flat and uninteresting. It has no shading. By adding lights, layer new light, we introduce drama, mood, and realism. After Effects offers 4 distinct light types. Choosing the right one is crucial for your visual style. The 4 light types. Spot. Think of a flashlight or a stage spotlight. It emits a cone of light that fades at the edges. It is directional and dramatic. You can control the cone angle and the feather, softness, of the edge. Point. This is a bare light bulb hanging in space. It shoots light in all directions, omnidirectional, from a specific point. Great for simulating candles, glowing orbs, or lamps. Parallel. Imagine the sun. The light rays are parallel, coming from infinitely far away. It casts uniform light across the whole scene from a specific direction. Ambient. This is the general room tone. It has no source and casts no shadows. It simply brightens every pixel equally. Use this sparingly to fill in shadows so they aren't pitch black. Figure. Visual matrix showing a simple 3D sphere lit by the 4 different light types. 1. Spot. Distinct circle of light on the sphere. 2. Point. Sphere lit from center fading outward. 3. Parallel. Uniform directional lighting. 4. Ambient. Flat. Washed out look. Labels underneath each sphere. Casting shadows. Lights are useless without shadows. However, shadows are turned off by default to save processing power. To see shadows, you must do a double handshake. In the light options, check Cast Shadows on. Select your 3D layer, the text or shape, press AA to open Material Options, and check Cast Shadows on. If you forget step 2, and I often do, you will spend 10 minutes wondering why your spotlight looks fake. 8.4 The Multiview Workspace, Navigating 3D Space. Attempting to arrange 3D objects while looking through the active camera is like trying to furnish a room while looking through a keyhole. You have no perception of true distance. To truly control 3D space, you need to change your perspective. At the bottom right of the composition panel, change the layout from 1 view to 2 views or 4 views. Figure, screenshot of the After Effects workspace in 4 views layout. Top left, top view, looking down like a blueprint. Top right, active camera, final render view. Bottom left, right view, side profile. Bottom right, custom view 1, isometric angle. Arrows showing how moving a layer in top view updates the active camera view. The blueprint view. I spend 80% of my 3D work time in the top view. This looks down on your scene like an architectural blueprint. In top view, you can clearly see the triangular cone of your camera and the position of your lights. You can grab a text layer and physically slide it into the camera's focus plane. Using the multiview workspace allows you to be the director and the set builder simultaneously. You can tweak the position of a light in the right view while watching the shadow update instantly in the active camera view. It bridges the gap between technical layout and artistic result. We have now broken the flat plane of the monitor. You are no longer just arranging pixels, you are building worlds. The combination of cameras, lights, and Z-space is where motion graphics starts to feel like magic. In the next chapter, we will look at one of the most powerful automated features in After Effects, expressions. We will learn how to make layers talk to each other without setting a single keyframe. Figure Mindmap, Chapter 8 3D, Cameras and Lights, Central Node, 3D Space, Branch, the 3D Switch, Node, Cube Icon, Node, X, Y, Z Axis, Node, Gizmo Control, Node, Layer Stacking versus Depth, Branch, Virtual Cameras, Node, 1 node versus 2 node, Node, Point of Interest, Node, Depth of Field, Leaf, Aperture, Leaf, Focus Distance, Leaf, Blur Level, Branch, Lighting Types, Node, Spot Directional Cone, Node, Point Omnidirectional, Node, Parallel Infinite Sun, Node, Ambient Flat Fill, Node, Material Options, Leaf, Cast Shadows on Off, Leaf, Light Transmission, Branch, Navigation, Node, Multiview Workspace, Node, Active Camera View, Node, Topside Views, Blueprints, Node, Custom Views.
Chapter 9, Locking Down Reality, Stabilization and Tracking. Section 9.1, Warp Stabilizer VFX, Smoothing Out Shaky Handheld Footage. Section 9.2, Single Point Tracking, Attaching Text and Graphics to Moving Objects. Section 9.3, The 3D Camera Tracker, Placing Assets into Real-World Environments. Section 9.4, Screen Replacements, Corner Pinning Basics for Device Screens. In Chapter 8, we broke the glass of your monitor and entered 3D space. We built cameras and lights to fly around your digital assets. We were the directors of a virtual world, creating movement where there was none. Now, we face the opposite challenge. The movement already exists, and it is messy. Real-world footage is shaky, chaotic, and unpredictable. If you have ever tried to place text next to a moving car or replace a screen on a handheld phone, you know that eyeballing it doesn't work. The moment your graphic slips just a pixel away from the footage, the illusion breaks. The viewer instantly knows it is fake. In this chapter, we are going to lock down reality. We will smooth out the jitters of handheld cameras and learn to track pixels so our graphics stick to video footage as if they were physically there during the shoot. This is the difference between an amateur overlay and a professional composite. Let's stabilize the chaos. Section 9.1, Warp Stabilizer VFX, Smoothing Out Shaky Handheld Footage. We start with one of the most popular, yet most misunderstood, Tools in After Effects, the Warp Stabilizer VFX. We have all been there. You shot great B-roll for a vlog or a commercial, but you didn't have a gimbal. The footage has that distracted micro jitter that makes it unwatchable. You need it smooth. The Warp Stabilizer is an automated effect that analyzes your footage and counter-animates it to keep the subject steady. However, it comes with a cost. It must zoom in to hide the edges of the frame as it moves the image around. Figure A. Detailed split-screen comparison diagram. The left side shows a video frame with significant motion blur edges and a red shaky label. The right side shows the same frame, slightly cropped, zoomed in, but perfectly aligned, labeled stabilized. Overlay graphics show the analysis progress bar at 15% in blue. How to apply Warp Stabilizer. Select your footage layer in the timeline. Go to the Animation menu and choose Warp Stabilizer VFX. Alternatively, find it in the Effects and Presets panel under Distort. Once applied, let go of the mouse. A blue banner will appear across your footage saying Initializing. This is a background process. The effect is analyzing every pixel's movement. The critical settings. While the default settings work 80% of the time, the other 20% can result in a gelout effect where the background wobbles unnaturally. Here is how to fix that. Result: change this from smooth motion to no motion if you want the camera to look like it was on a tripod. Keep it on smooth motion if you want to keep the camera movement but remove the jitter. Method: this is the most important setting. Asterisk subspace warp: default warps parts of the frame independently. Good for complex movement but causes jello. Asterisk position, scale, rotation: a safer bet. It moves the whole frame without warping pixels. Use this if the default looks weird. Figure: a close-up screenshot of the Effect Controls panel focusing on the Warp Stabilizer VFX settings. Highlight that method drop-down menu with the mouse hovering over position, scale, rotation. The result is set to smooth motion with smoothness at 50%. Pro tip: Warp Stabilizer fights against you if you try to adjust the speed of the clip after stabilizing. Always pre-compose your footage first if you plan to speed ramp it or stabilize it before you edit time. Section 9.2, Single Point Tracking, attaching text and graphics to moving objects. Stabilization removes movement, tracking uses it. Imagine you are editing a corporate video. The CEO walks down a hallway, and you want their name and title to float next to their head, bobbing up and down with their stride. For simple 2D movement like this, we use the Legacy Tracker panel. We need to tell After Effects to watch a specific high contrast point in the video, like a button on a shirt or a distinct mole, and apply that movement to our text. The tracking workflow. This process involves a specific order of operations. Do not skip the null object step, it saves you from messy keyframe disasters later. Create a null object, go to Layer, New, a null object. Rename it Tracker Null. This invisible layer will hold the movement data. Open the tracker, select your video layer. Go to Window Tracker. Click Track Motion, a new layer panel will open. Tracking happens here, not in the composition panel. Figure: a technical diagram showing the anatomy of a track point. A small square inside a larger square. Label the inner square feature region, what to look for, and the outer square search region, where to look for it. An arrow points to the central crosshair labeled Attach Point. Mastering the track point. You will see a track point appear, a box inside a box. In a box, feature region, place this around the high contrast item, e.g., the button on the suit. Outer box, search region, this tells After Effects how far the object might move between frames. If the movement is fast, make this box bigger. Click the Analyze Forward, Play button, icon in the tracker panel. Watch the software automatically hunt down that pixel frame by frame. Applying the data. Once the track is done, you have a path of keyframes. Click Edit Target in the tracker panel and select your tracker null. Click Apply. Choose X and Y dimensions. Now your null object is glued to the CEO's lapel. The final step is simple parenting. Place your text layer where you want it, then use the pick whip to parent the text to the tracker null. The text now follows the person perfectly, but you retain the freedom to reposition the text without messing up the tracking data. Section 9.3, the 3D camera tracker, placing assets into real-world environments. Single-point tracking is great for 2D panning, left, right, up, down. But what if the camera moves forward into a scene? What if you want to place 3D text standing on the floor of a hallway while the camera walks past it? This requires solving the parallax, the way objects close to the camera move faster than objects far away. For this, we use the 3D camera tracker. This tool is incredibly powerful. It reverse engineers the physical camera's movement and creates a virtual camera in After Effects that matches it perfectly. Figure, a screenshot of a city street footage in the composition window. The scene is covered in hundreds of tiny, colorful X marks, track points, of varying sizes. A red target bullseye graphic is flat on the pavement, aligned with the perspective of the road. The 3D tracking process. Select your footage. Choose Effect Perspective 3D Camera Tracker. Wait. A banner saying Analyzing in background will appear. This can take a few minutes depending on your resolution. When it finishes, your footage will look like it has been covered in colorful confetti. These are track points. Small points represent background elements. Large points represent foreground elements. Sticking text to the ground. Hover your mouse over the points. You will see a red bullseye target appear. The goal is to find a cluster of points on a flat surface, like the floor or a wall, where the bullseye looks like it is lying flat in perspective. Click to select a triangle of points on the floor. Right-click the target. Select Create Text and Camera. Boom! After Effects creates a 3D camera layer that mimics the original cameraman, and a text layer that is physically positioned at that spot in 3D space. If you scrub the timeline, the text should look like it is physically standing on the ground. You can now swap that text for a logo, a 3D shape, or anything else, as long as you keep it in that 3D position. Warning: this effect requires footage with actual camera movement, parallax. It will not work on a tripod shot where the camera just pans left and right. Section 9.4, Screen Replacements, Corner Pinning Basics for Device Screens. One of the most common jobs for a motion designer is screen replacement. You have footage of someone looking at a phone or tablet, but the screen is blank or green. You need to put your UI design onto that device. Since a screen is a rectangle, we need to track for points, the four corners, to handle the perspective changes as the device tilts. Using the native perspective tracker. While third-party tools like Mocha AE, included with After Effects, are the industry standard for difficult shots, the native tracker is excellent for learning the fundamentals of corner pinning. Prep your screen, import your UI design. Right-click it and pre-compose it. Select Move All Attributes. This is crucial, it allows you to update the screen content later without retracking. Set up the tracker, select the footage. In the tracker panel, choose Track Motion. Change track type, in the tracker settings, change Transform to Perspective Corner Pin. Figure, a close-up diagram of a smartphone screen in a video frame. For distinct track points, crosshairs are positioned exactly on the four corners of the device screen. Number them 1, 2, 3, for clockwise from top left. Arrows indicate their attach point is on the bezel to screen contrast edge. For points of contact, you will now see for track points in the layer panel. Drag them to the four corners of the device screen in the footage. Look for high contrast corners. Analyze forward just like we did in section 9.2. Once the track is solid, 1. Click Edit Target and select your pre-composed screen layer. 2. Click Apply. After Effects applies the corner pin effect to your screen layer. The corners of your graphic are now pinned to the corners of the device. If the alignment isn't perfect, don't try to move the layer with the selection tool, that will break the pin. Instead, go inside the pre-comp to adjust the position of your graphics, or use the CC power pin effect for fine-tuning. Conclusion. Tracking is about patience. Sometimes the automatic solution works instantly, other times, you have to go in frame by frame and nudge a track point back into place. But the feeling when you play back the footage and your graphics are locked perfectly to the real world? It is pure magic. It stops being a video effect and starts being reality. In the next chapter, we are going to look at one of the most essential, yet often ignored, aspects of professional video, audio. We will learn to make things sound as good as they look. Figure Mind Map, Chapter 9, Stabilization and Tracking, Root, Tracking and Stabilization, Branch, Warp Stabilizer VFX, Node, Best for Handheld Shakes, Node, Subspace Warp versus Position, Node, No Scale Setting, Branch, Single Point Tracking, Node, 2D Movement X, Y, Node, Tracker Panel, Node, Workflow, Track Dash and Null Dash Apparent, Branch, 3D Camera Tracker, Node, Solves Parallax, Node, Creates Virtual Camera, Node, Placing Objects in 3D Space, Branch, Screen Replacement, Node, Perspective. Corner Pin, Node, for Point Tracking, Node, Precompose Screen Content.
Chapter 10, Advanced Compositing, Rotoscoping and Green Screen. Section 10.1, Keylight 101, Removing Green and Blue Backgrounds Cleanly. Section 10.2, Rotobrush 2.0, Isolating Subjects Without a Green Screen. Section 10.3, Refining Matte Edges, Dealing with Hair and Motion Blur. Section 10.4, Color Matching, Integrating Cutouts with New Backgrounds. In Chapter 9, we learned how to lock our graphics to reality using tracking. We analyzed camera movement to place text on walls and screens into phones. But sometimes, tracking isn't enough. Sometimes, you need to completely remove reality and substitute your own. Welcome to the art of compositing. This is where the magic of movie making truly lives. It is the ability to take an actor filming in a garage and place them on the surface of Mars, or to isolate a person from a busy street to put text behind them. For years, this process was the most tedious part of the job. I remember spending entire weekends manually moving mask points, frame by frame, just to cut someone out of a background. It was grueling work that often led to stiff, unnatural results. Fortunately, After Effects has evolved. With the industry-standard Keylight effect and the AI-powered Rotobrush 2.0, and now 3.0, we can achieve Hollywood-level composites in a fraction of the time. In this chapter, we are going to learn how to tear subjects out of their environments and blend them seamlessly into new ones. 10.1 Keylight 101, Removing Green and Blue Backgrounds Cleanly. Chroma keying, green screening, is the process of targeting a specific color range and turning it transparent. While there are many effects in Adobe's arsenal, Keylight 1.2 is the gold standard. It is powerful, but it can be intimidating if you don't know which knobs to turn. The biggest mistake beginners make is trying to do everything with just the color picker. They click the green, and if it doesn't look perfect immediately, they start panicking. A good key is built in stages, not in a single click. Let's look at the proper workflow to pull a clean key without destroying your subject's edges. Figure, detailed screenshot of the After Effects effects and presets panel searching for Keylight, and the Effect Controls panel showing the Keylight 1.2 interface. Highlight the screen color eyedropper and the View drop-down menu set to Intermediate Result. Picking the right green. First, apply the Keylight 1.2 effect to your footage. Click the screen color eyedropper. Do not click the brightest green or the darkest shadow, aim for the average green closest to your subject's face or hair. Once you click, the background should turn black, or checkerboard transparency. However, don't trust your eyes just yet. Switch the View drop-down menu from Final Result to Screen Matte. This view turns your image into a black and white map. White represents opaque pixels, your subject, and black represents transparent pixels, the background. Anything gray is semi-transparent, which usually means noise or a bad key. Figure, a side-by-side comparison. Left side shows the raw footage with a green screen. Right side shows the screen matte view in high contrast black and white, highlighting the silhouette of the subject against a solid black background. Cleaning the matte. You will likely see gray speckles in the black background or gray holes in your white subject. We need to push these to solid black and solid white. Open the Screen Matte Twirl Down menu within the Effect settings. Adjust the Clip Black setting. Slowly increase this value until the background noise disappears and becomes purely black. Be careful not to push it too far, or you will start eating into the edges of your subject. Next, adjust the Clip White setting. Lower this value until your subject is solid white. The goal is to get a high contrast matte without making the edges look blocky or pixelated. Pro tip. A good rule of thumb is to keep Clip Black below 20 and Clip White above 80. If you have to push them further, e.g., Clip Black to 50, your lighting on set was likely poor, and you might lose edge detail. 10.2 Roto Brush 2.0, Isolating Subjects Without a Green Screen. Green screens are a luxury. Ideally, we always have one, but in the real world, clients often send footage shot in a messy office or a busy park. This is where rotoscoping comes in, cutting a subject out frame by frame. Historically, this was a nightmare. Enter Roto Brush 2.0. This tool uses artificial intelligence to look at the frame, identify the subject you are painting over, and automatically track their movement over time. To use it, double-click your layer to open it in the Layer panel. Roto Brush does not work in the Composition panel. Select the Roto Brush tool from the top toolbar. It looks like a person with a paintbrush. Figure, close-up of the After Effects toolbar focusing on the Roto Brush icon, a figure with a brush. Also show the mouse cursor turning into a green circle with a plus sign over a video subject. Painting the propagation. With the tool selected, hold Ctrl, Windows, or CMD, Mac, and drag your mouse to change the brush size. Paint a green stroke down the center of your subject. You don't need to be precise, just tell After Effects, this stuff here is the foreground. The AI will wrap a magenta line around the subject. If it misses a spot, paint another green stroke over the missing area. If it grabs too much background, hold the Alt, Windows, or Option, Mac, key, the brush turns red, and paint over the background to remove it. Figure, a screenshot of the Layer panel showing a subject with a green stroke painted on their torso and a red stroke painted on the background. A bright magenta outline surrounds the subject, indicating the selection boundary. The propagation arrow. Once your first frame looks good, press the spacebar to play. You will see a green bar growing forward on your timeline. This is the propagation. The AI is calculating the matte for every subsequent frame. Watch the magenta line closely. If it drifts off the subject, stop playback immediately. Fix the frame with a green or red stroke, and then continue playing. The AI learns from your corrections. Freezing the roto. This is the most critical step that beginners forget. Once you have rotoscoped the entire clip, you must click the freeze button at the bottom right of the Layer panel. Roto brush data is heavy and temporary. If you don't freeze it, After Effects has to recalculate the mask every time you make a change, which will crash your performance. Freezing locks the calculation so you can return to the Composition panel and work smoothly. Figure, a UI screenshot highlighting the freeze button under the Roto brush timeline in the Layer panel. The button should appear active or highlighted to stress its importance. 10.3 Refining matte edges, dealing with hair and motion blur. A sharp cutout looks like a paper doll. It looks fake because real cameras capture motion blur, and real objects, especially organic ones like people, have soft edges. Hair is the ultimate enemy of a clean composite. If you use the standard Roto brush on someone with frizzy hair, it will look like they are wearing a helmet. To fix this, we use the Refine Edge tool. It is grouped with the Roto brush tool in the toolbar. Switch to the Refine Edge tool. In the Layer panel, paint over the edge of the hair where the background is visible through the strands. You are telling After Effects, look at this transition area more closely. Figure, a close-up visual of a subject's hair. The user is painting a wide, feathery stroke over the edge of the hair using the Refine Edge tool. The visual shows the X-ray style view where the hair strands are becoming detailed in the matte. Refining in key light. For green screen footage, edge refinement happens inside the keylight effect. If your edges look crunchy or pixelated, look at the screen shrink grow parameter. A negative value, like -1.0 or -2.0, will slightly tighten the matte, cutting off the jagged halo around your subject. Combined with screen softness, you can blur the edge just enough to mimic the natural focus of the camera lens. Always check your depth bias as well. Sometimes, a green reflection remains on the skin or blonde hair. Keylight usually handles this automatically, but if your subject looks sickly, adjusting the depth bias can neutralize that color cast. 10.4 Color matching, integrating cutouts with new backgrounds. You have a perfect matte. You have removed the green screen or rotoscoped the subject flawlessly. You drop them onto a new background, and it looks terrible. Why? Because the lighting doesn't match. The subject might be warm and contrasted, while the background is cool and washed out. To sell the illusion, you must glue the layers together with color correction. The fastest way to achieve this is by matching the black point and white point. Using Lumetri color. Apply the Lumetri color effect to your subject. Open the Basic Correction tab. Look at the darkest shadow in your new background. Is it pitch black, or a dark blue-gray? You want your subject's blacks to match that tone. Do the same for the highlights. If the background is a sunset with warm orange highlights, your subject cannot have sterile white highlights. Use the temperature and tint sliders to shift your subject's color balance to mimic the environment. Figure, a split-screen comparison. The left half shows a rotoscoped subject looking pasted on with mismatched lighting. The right half shows the same subject color-corrected to blend with the background, with arrows pointing to the matched shadows and highlights. The light wrap trick. The final touch that pros use is a light wrap. In the real world, bright light from a background wraps around the edges of a foreground object. We can fake this to blend the layers physically. Duplicate your subject layer. On the bottom copy, apply a fast box blur, set to about 5 to 10 pixels, and change the layer's blending mode to add or screen. Lower the opacity to around 20 to 30%. This creates a subtle bloom of the background light bleeding onto the edges of your subject. It breaks the harsh digital cut and makes the subject feel like they are truly inhabiting the space. Compositing is a puzzle. It requires patience to pull a clean matte and an artistic eye to match the colors. But when you get it right, the screen disappears, and the illusion becomes reality. Figure Mind Map Chapter 10 Mind Map, Advanced Compositing, Root, Advanced Compositing, Branch, Keylight 101, Node, Green Blue Screen, Node, Eyedropper Selection, Node, Screen Matte View, Node, Clip Black White, Branch, Roto Brush 2.0, Node, AI Isolation, Node, Green Red Strokes, Node, Propagation, Node, Freeze Button, Branch, Refining Edges, Node, Refine Edge Tool, Node, Hair and Transparency, Node, Screen Shrink Grow, Node, Edge Softness, Branch, Integration, Node, Color. Matching, Node, Lumetri Color, Node, Black-White Points, Node, Light Wrap Technique.
Chapter 11, Deficiency Hacks, Expressions and Essential Graphics. Section 11.1, The Pick Whip, Linking Properties Without Writing Code. Section 11.2, The Wiggle Expression, Adding Procedural Chaos and Shake. Section 11.3, Loop Expressions, Creating Infinite Cycles for Backgrounds. Section 11.4, Building Moguts, Creating Templates for Premiere Pro Editors. We have spent the last 10 chapters building complex worlds. We have painstakingly rotoscoped actors, tracked cameras through 3D space, and sculpted lighting to create mood. You now possess the skills to create anything you can imagine. But there is one limited resource we haven't discussed enough: your energy. Motion design can be exhausting. I have spent too many nights manually adjusting hundreds of keyframes just because a client wanted a logo to shake a little bit more. That is the path to burnout. This chapter is about working smarter, not harder. We are going to automate the tedious parts of animation using expressions, small snippets of code that control your layers. Then, we will package those animations into essential graphics templates, MOGUTs, so you never have to rebuild the same lower third again. If the word code makes you nervous, take a deep breath. We aren't writing software here. We are just learning a few magic words to save you hours of work. 11.1 The Pick Whip, linking properties without writing code. The easiest way to start using expressions isn't by typing, it is by drawing lines. After Effects contains a tool called the Pick Whip, which looks like a small spiral icon next to your layer properties. Think of the Pick Whip as a patch cable. It allows you to plug the output of one property directly into the input of another. If layer A moves, layer B follows, not because you keyed it, but because it is listening. Figure, ultra-detailed close-up screenshot of the After Effects timeline. Focus on the parent and link column. A cursor is dragging the spiral Pick Whip icon from a text layer named Subtitle to a null object layer named Controller. A distinct line connects the two. The UI is dark gray, standard Adobe interface. High contrast, sharp focus on the spiral icon. Linking parameters. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you have 3 different circles that need to fade out at the exact same time. You could keyframe the opacity for all 3, but if you want to change the timing later, you have to adjust 3 sets of keyframes. Instead, we designate one layer as the master. Reveal the opacity, press T, for all 3 layers. Hold Alt, Windows, or Option, Mac, and click the stopwatch icon of the second layer. This opens the expression text field. Locate the Pick Whip icon, the spiral, next to the expression field you just opened. Click and drag the Pick Whip up to the opacity value of your master layer. Figure, split screen visual. On the left, a user holds Alt Option and clicks the stopwatch. On the right, the Pick Whip is dragged from the little child layer's opacity to the master layer's opacity value, set to 50%. An arrow indicates the direction of the drag. Text overlay, Alt-click to open, drag to link. When you release the mouse, After Effects writes the code for you. It will look something like this. Thiscomp.layer, master circle, .transform.opacity. Now, the second layer will do exactly what the master layer does. Do this for the third layer, and you now control the entire system with a single set of keyframes. This is the foundation of building rigs, controls that drive multiple elements at once. 11.2 The Wiggle expression, adding procedural chaos and shake. Computer animation naturally wants to be perfect. If you move a layer from point A to point B, the computer draws a perfectly straight line. But reality isn't perfect. Handheld cameras shake, lights flicker, and objects vibrate. To simulate this manually, you would need to set a keyframe every few frames, moving the layer slightly. It takes forever and usually looks rhythmic and fake. Enter the wiggle expression. This is the single most useful command in After Effects. It generates random values over time, creating natural, organic movement. Applying the wiggle. Let's make a text layer vibrate nervously. Select your layer and press P to open position. Alt-click or Option-click the position stopwatch. In the text box that appears, type the following. Wiggle, 5, 20. Click out of the text box and play your timeline. Your text is now shaking. Understanding the math. The wiggle command asks for 2 main arguments, frequency and amplitude. The first number, frequency, how many times per second should it move? In our example, 5 times per second. The second number, amplitude, how far is it allowed to move? In our example, up to 20 pixels in any direction. Figure, a clean infographic illustrating the wiggle expression. A central text box shows wiggle, frequency, amplitude. An arrow from frequency points to a sine wave demonstrating speed, Hz. An arrow from amplitude points to a bracket showing distance, pixels. Below, a comparison, wiggle, 2, 10, shows a slow, gentle wave. Wiggle, 15, 100, shows a jagged, chaotic wave. You can apply this to almost anything. Apply wiggle, 50:10, to opacity to create a flickering horror movie light. Apply it to the scale of a background element to make it pulse organically. It injects life into static layers immediately. 11.3 Loop expressions, creating infinite cycles for backgrounds. We often need background elements to move continuously, clouds drifting, geometric shapes spinning, or a texture sliding. If your composition is 30 seconds long, setting a start keyframe at midnight and an end keyframe at 30:00 is frustrating, especially if you later extend the comp to a minute. Loop expressions solve this by repeating a small section of animation forever. The cycle loop. Imagine you have a small cloud graphic. You want it to drift across the screen repeatedly. Animate the cloud moving from left to right over 2 seconds. Alt-click the position stopwatch. Type this code. Loop out, cycle. Now, past the last keyframe, the animation will jump back to the start and play again. It will do this indefinitely, no matter how long you make your composition. The ping-pong loop. Sometimes, a hard cut back to the beginning looks bad. For example, if you want a logo to float up and down gently, you want it to go up dash a down dash or up dash a down. For this, we change the argument inside the quotes. Loop out, ping pong. This plays the animation forward, then reverses it, then plays it forward again. It creates a seamless back and forth motion with 0 extra keyframes. Pro tip: for a perfect loop using cycle, ensure your first and last keyframes are identical. Copy your first keyframe and paste it at the end of your loop duration before applying the expression. 11 Point for building moguts, creating templates for Premiere Pro editors. This section is a career accelerator. If you work with video editors, or edit your own videos in Premiere Pro, you know the pain of needing to change the spelling of a name in a lower third graphic. Usually, this means opening After Effects, changing the text, re-rendering, and importing it back to Premiere. Motion graphics templates, moguts, allow you to export your After Effects composition so that text, colors, and layout can be edited directly inside Premiere Pro. The Essential Graphics panel. To build a mogut, we use the Essential Graphics panel. Go to Window Essential Graphics. Select your composition from the master to drop down in the panel. Click the button that says Solo Supported Properties inside your timeline. This reveals every property that can be controlled: text source, color, sliders, opacity. Drag and drop. Building the template is as simple as dragging properties from your timeline into the Essential Graphics panel. If you have a text layer for a name, find the source text property in the timeline and drag it into the panel. Rename its name. Do the same for the title text. If you have a colored background bar, drag the color property into the panel. Figure, screenshot of the Essential Graphics workflow. On the left, the After Effects timeline showing a text layer's properties expanded. An arrow shows that the source text property being dragged into the Essential Graphics panel on the right. The panel already contains fields labeled main title, subtitle, and background color. The interface is clean and instructional. Adding logic with sliders. This is where the pick whip from section 11.1 returns. Let's say you want to give the editor a slider to control the size of the text. Create a null object and add a slider control effect to it. Use the pick whip to link your text layer scale to this slider. Drag the slider from the null object into the Essential Graphics panel. Now, the editor in Premiere will see a simple slider to adjust the size. Exporting. Once you have added all your controls, click the Export Motion Graphics Template button at the bottom of the panel. Save it to your local templates folder. In Premiere Pro, open the Essential Graphics panel, browse for your template, and drag it onto the timeline. You can now edit the text and color in real time without ever opening After Effects. Figure, a split view showing the result. Left side, the raw After Effects project with layers and expressions. Right side, the Premiere Pro interface showing the clean, user-friendly Edit tab of the Essential Graphics panel, where a user is typing John Doe into a text field. The video monitor shows the name updating instantly. By mastering expressions and mogets, you stop being just an animator and start being a toolmaker. You free up your brain to focus on creativity because the repetitive tasks are being handled by the machine. Figure Mind Map, Chapter 11 Efficiency Hacks Mind Map, Central Node, Efficiency Hacks 11.1 Pick Whip, Visual Programming, No Typing Required, Parent and Link Relationships, Creating Rigs, Master Layers, 11.2 Wiggle Expression, Procedural Noise, Syntax, Wiggle, Freq, Amp, Natural Shaky Chaos applies to position, scale, opacity, 11.3 Loop Expressions, Automating Cycles, Loop Out, Cycle, Dash Repeats, Loop Out, Ping Pong, Dash Bounces, Infinite Backgrounds, 11.4 Essential. Graphics Mogets, AE to Premiere Workflow, Drag and Drop Properties, Editable Text and Color, Reusable Templates.
Chapter 12, Audio Visualization, Syncing Sound and Motion. Section 12.1, Visualizing Waveforms, Animating to the Beat of the Music. Section 12.2, Markers and Cues, Spotting audio hits for precise timing. Section 12.3, Audio to Keyframes, Converting sound data into animation values. Section 12.4, The Audio Spectrum Effect, Generating Dynamic Music Visualizers. In Chapter 11, we focused on efficiency. We learned to use expressions and essential graphics to save your energy and automate repetitive tasks. Now, we are going to apply that efficiency to one of the most powerful drivers of emotion in video, sound. Up until now, we have mostly treated After Effects as a visual tool. We have moved pixels, lights, and cameras. But motion graphics without sound is like a dance without music, technically impressive, but it often lacks soul. When the motion snaps perfectly to the beat of a drum, or a title glitch syncs exactly with a static noise, the viewer stops seeing animation and starts feeling the rhythm. It creates a cohesive sensory experience. In this chapter, we aren't just adding audio, we are letting the audio drive the car. We will move beyond manually guessing where the beat is. Instead, we will use tools to visualize sound, automate animation based on volume, and create professional music visualizers that react in real time. 12.1 Visualizing Waveforms, Animating to the Beat of the Music. The first challenge in syncing audio is that you cannot see it. By default, an audio layer in your timeline is just a colored bar. To animate to a beat, you need to see the landscape of the sound. You need to reveal the waveform. When you drop an audio file, MP3, WAV, or AIFF, into your composition, it acts like any other layer, but it has no visual properties. To see the data, select the layer and press the L key twice quickly, LL. Figure, a high-contrast screenshot of the After Effects timeline panel focusing on an audio layer. The layer is expanded to show a detailed green waveform graph. The peaks, loud sounds, and valleys, silence, are clearly visible against the dark UI background. A red current time indicator, playhead, is positioned exactly over a sharp peak, kick drum hit, dot. Now you are looking at a map of your audio. The high peaks represent loud moments, usually kick drums, snare hits, or dialogue spikes. The flat lines are silence. Navigation tips, *zoom in, press the plus key on your main keyboard to zoom into the timeline. You need to see the individual frames to catch the exact moment a beat hits. Audio scrubbing, hold Control, Windows, or CMD, Mac, while dragging the current time indicator, CTI, to hear the audio scrub frame by frame. This is essential for finding the exact frame where a sound starts. If you are animating a logo to bounce on the beat, you don't guess. You look at the waveform. You place your squash and stretch keyframes so the impact point aligns vertically with the highest peak of the waveform. 12.2 Markers and Cues, Spotting audio hits for precise timing. While looking at the waveform is helpful, having the layer expanded takes up a lot of screen real estate. It can get messy if you have 20 layers in your composition. This is where markers come in. Think of markers as digital sticky notes you place directly on the timeline to remind yourself, something cool happens here. I use a technique I call live recording to spot my audio. It is much faster than looking at the waveform and manually placing a marker every time I see a peak. The live recording workflow. Select your audio layer. Start a RAM preview, press spacebar or 0 on the numpad. As the music plays, tap the asterisk key on your numpad to the beat. Every time you tap, After Effects places a marker on the layer in real time. Figure, a screenshot showing an audio layer collapsed, waveform hidden, but populated with several wedge-shaped markers along the top edge of the layer bar. The markers are evenly spaced, representing a steady 4/4 musical beat. The timeline time ruler is visible above. Once you stop playback, you will have a perfect visual guide of the rhythm. You can now collapse the audio layer to save space and line up your animation keyframes to these markers. If you need to leave a note for yourself, perhaps marking a specific lyric or a sound effect change, double-click a marker. A dialog box will appear where you can type a label, like bass drop or logo in. This prepares the roadmap. Now, let's get the computer to do the heavy lifting. 12.3 Audio to keyframes, converting sound data into animation values. In Chapter 11, we used expressions to link properties. Here is the ultimate efficiency hack. We are going to extract the volume data from a song and turn it into raw numbers that can drive any property, scale, opacity, rotation, or glow intensity. This is how you make a speaker pump or a light flicker to a voice. Step 1. Extract the data. Right-click your audio layer in the timeline. Go to Keyframe Assistant. Convert audio to keyframes. After Effects will create a new null object layer called Audio Amplitude. If you select this layer and press U, you will see it has added keyframes to slider effects for left channel, right channel, and both channels. Figure, a split view screenshot. On the left, the Effect Controls panel showing the audio amplitude layer with 3 slider controls, left, right, both. On the right, the graph editor showing a jagged curve that perfectly matches the audio volume, demonstrating that audio has been converted to data keyframes. Step 2. Linking the animation. Now we have a layer where the slider value changes from 0, silence, to roughly 15 to 30, loud. We need to hook our graphic up to this. Let's say we want a circle to scale up when the music gets loud. Create a shape layer, a circle. Open the Scale property, S. Alt-click, Windows, or Option-click, Mac, the stopwatch to add an expression. Use the pick whip, the swirl icon, and drag it to the slider on the audio amplitude layer, under both channels. Your code will look something like this. This comp.layer, audio amplitude, .effect, both channels, slider. Step 3. The math fix. If you play it back now, your circle will disappear. Why? Because the music volume is only hitting values like 10 or 20. A scale of 20% is tiny. We need to add a base value and perhaps multiply the impact. Modify your expression to look like this. // get the music volume. var music equals this comp.layer, audio amplitude, .effect, both channels, slider. // add base scale of 100, and multiply the music impact by 3. 100, plus, music, *3. Now, the circle sits at 100% scale during silence. When the beat hits, let's say a value of 15, the math becomes 100 plus open parenthesis 15 times 3 close parenthesis is equal to 145. The circle pumps to 145% scale. This technique is limitless. You can link audio amplitude to the glow radius of a text layer, the position of a camera shake, or the evolution of a fractal noise effect. 12.4 The audio spectrum effect, generating dynamic music visualizers. If you watch music channels on YouTube, you have seen the audio spectrum. It is those bars or lines that jump up and down representing the frequencies of the song. Many beginners try to build this manually with masks. Do not do that. After Effects has a dedicated engine for this. Applying the effect. 1. Create a new solid layer, Ctrl plus Y CMD plus Y. Name it Visualizer. 2. Go to Effect Generate Audio Spectrum. By default, It looks a bit outdated, thin pink lines. We need to customize it to make it look professional. Vital settings. The most common mistake is forgetting to tell the effect which audio to listen to. Asterisk audio layer. Change this from none to your music layer. If you don't do this, the lines won't move. Figure. Close-up of the effect controls panel for the audio spectrum effect. The audio layer drop-down is highlighted in yellow to emphasize selecting the music track. The start point and end point coordinates are visible below, along with frequency band settings. Styling for a modern look, asterisk frequency bands, increase this to 64 or 128. This creates more bars, making the visualization look smoother and more detailed. Asterisk maximum height, crank this up if your audio is quiet, or the bars will look like tiny blips. Asterisk thickness, increase the thickness of the bands so they merge slightly. Asterisk colors, change the inside and outside colors to match your brand palette. Pro tip, circular visualizers. The audio spectrum draws along a path. If you want a circular visualizer, like the ones used by many EDM labels, draw a circular mask on your visualizer solid layer. 2. In the effect controls, change path from none to mask 1. 3. Switch the side options to side B so the bars only shoot outward, not inward. Combine this with the glow effects we learned in Chapter 6, and you have a broadcast-ready music video background in minutes. Figure Mind Map Chapter 12, Audio Visualization, Syncing Sound and Motion, Visualizing Waveforms, double tap LL, read the peak scrub with Ctrl+CMD, markers and cues, the roadmap numpad asterisk to tap beat live recording workflow annotating markers, audio to keyframes, keyframe assistant audio amplitude layer expression linking math, base value plus multiplier, audio spectrum, effect generate link audio layer source increase frequency bands path options, circular.
Chapter 13, Delivering the Goods, Rendering and Exporting. Section 13.1, The Render Queue versus Adobe Media Encoder, When to Use Which. Section 13.2, Understanding Codecs, H.264, ProRes, and Transparent Backgrounds. Section 13.3, Reducing File Size, Optimization Tips for Web and Social Media. Section 13.4, Collect Files, Packaging your project for archive or transfer. In Chapter 12, we breathed soul into our motion graphics by syncing them with audio. We made the visuals dance to the beat and established an emotional rhythm. But right now, that magic only exists inside your computer, trapped within the After Effects interface. If you sent your project file, .eep, to a client or a friend, they likely wouldn't be able to open it. Even if they could, they might be missing your fonts or footage. To show the world what you have created, you need to bake your layers, effects, and audio into a single, standalone video file. This process is called rendering. It is the bridge between being a motion designer and being a content creator. It is also the stage where things can go wrong, colors shift, files become surprisingly huge, or backgrounds that should be transparent turn black. In this chapter, we are going to demystify the export process. We will look at the tools Adobe provides, understand the languages video files speak, and ensure your final product looks exactly as crisp on YouTube as it does on your monitor. Let's get your work out of the lab and into the wild. 13.1 The Render Queue versus Adobe Media Encoder, When to Use Which. One of the first confusing things beginners notice is that there are two ways to export video from After Effects. You can use the internal render queue or send the composition to the Adobe Media Encoder. Think of the render queue as a precision laboratory. It is built directly into After Effects and is designed to create high-quality, uncompressed, or lightly compressed, master files. It is strictly about fidelity. Adobe Media Encoder, AME, on the other hand, is a factory. It is a separate application designed for compression and distribution. It excels at taking heavy files and shrinking them down for the web, creating MP4s, and handling multiple projects at once. Figure, a split-screen comparison diagram. On the left, the After Effects Render Queue panel with high-contrast UI elements highlighting best settings and lossless. On the right, the Adobe Media Encoder interface showing a cue list with H.264 and YouTube 1080p presets. Arrows connect a central composition icon to both paths, labeled Master Quality, left, and Web Delivery, right. When to use the render queue. Use the render queue when you need a master file. This is a file you might use for further editing in Premiere Pro, or for archiving. It creates large files, but they preserve every pixel of detail. To add a comp to the render queue, 1. Select your composition in the project panel or timeline. 2. Go to the top menu, Composition and Add to Render Queue, shortcut, Ctrl+M or CMD+M. 3. The render queue panel will pop up at the bottom of your screen. When to use Adobe Media Encoder. Use Media Encoder when you want to post directly to YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. It uses efficient compression algorithms to make file sizes manageable without destroying quality. It also allows you to keep working in After Effects while the render happens in the background. To send a comp to Media Encoder, 1. Select your composition. 2. Go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue, shortcut, Ctrl+Alt+M or CMD+Op+M. 3. AME will launch. It might take a moment, and your project will appear in the list. 13.2 Understanding Codecs, H.264, ProRes, and Transparent Backgrounds. A video file is essentially a container, like .mov or .mp4. Inside that container is the video stream, which is compressed using a codec, see Compressor D compressor. Choosing the wrong codec is why your 10-second animation is suddenly 4 gigabytes in size. We are going to focus on the two industry standards you will use 99% of the time, ProRes and H.264. Apple ProRes, the professional standard. ProRes is a mezzanine codec. It is high quality and easy for computers to read during editing. I recommend using ProRes for 22 for high quality masters. If you need to export an animation with a transparent background, like a lower third title or a subscribe button animation to place over other footage, you must use ProRes 4444. To export with transparency, Alpha Channel, in the render queue, 1. Click on the blue text lossless next to Output module. 2. Set format to QuickTime. 3. Click Format Options and choose Apple ProRes 4444. 4. Crucial step, under Video Output, change channels from RGB to RGB plus Alpha. Figure, a close-up screenshot of the After Effects Output Module Settings dialog box. The focus is on the Video Output section. The channels drop-down menu is open and RGB plus Alpha is highlighted with a bright accent color. A cursor hovers over it. The format is set to QuickTime. If you forget to change RGB to RGB plus Alpha, After Effects will fill your transparent areas with black. This is the most common mistake I see new artists make when creating overlays. H.264, the web standard. H.264 is the codec used for MP4 files. It is incredibly efficient at squeezing high quality into small files. This is what you upload to YouTube, Vimeo, or send to clients for review. You generally render H.264s through Adobe Media Encoder, not the render queue. While the render queue can do it, AME offers better control over the bitrate and multipass encoding, which creates cleaner images at lower file sizes. 13.3 Reducing file size, optimization tips for web and social media. We all want the highest quality, but we also have to deal with bandwidth limits. If you email a client a 2 GB file for a 30-second draft, they won't be happy. Optimization is about finding the balance between quality and file size. The main lever you can pull here is bitrate. Bitrate is the amount of data allowed per second of video. High bitrate equals high quality large file. Low bitrate equals blocky quality small file. Target bitrates for social media. When exporting from Media Encoder using H.264, look for the Bitrate Settings tab. Here are some practical safe zones for 1080p renders. YouTube Vimeo, high quality 16 to 20 megabits per second, target bitrate. Instagram TikTok, 8 to 12 megabits per second. Client email preview, 3 to 5 megabits per second. Figure, a detailed view of the Adobe Media Encoder export settings window. The Video tab is selected. The bitrate settings section is expanded, showing a slider for target bitrate, Mbps. The slider is set to 12. A tooltip or call-out box explains, lower this number to reduce file size. Graphical icons of a phone, laptop, and TV indicate different target outputs. Resolution and frame rate. Don't export 4K if 80% of your viewers are on phones. Downscaling your 4K composition to 1080p upon export can cut your file size significantly and often looks sharper on small screens. In Media Encoder, you can uncheck the box next to width and height in the Video tab to manually type in 1080 for the height, assuming a 16:9 aspect ratio. This allows you to keep your high-res master project while delivering a lightweight file for the web. 13 point for collect files, packaging your project for archive or transfer. Imagine this scenario: you finish a project, render it, and delete the video clips you downloaded from a stock site to clear up space on your desktop. 6 months later, the client emails, "We love it, but can we change the text?" You open the project, and you are greeted by the color bars of death. Your footage is offline. Because After Effects only links to files rather than embedding them, deleting the source files breaks the project. To prevent this nightmare, you must use the Collect Files feature. This gathers every font, image, audio clip, and video file used in your composition and copies them into a single, neat folder. How to collect files. Save your project first. Go to File Dependencies, Collect Files. In the dialog box, ensure Collect Source Files is set to for all comps or just selected ones. Click Collect. Choose a destination folder. After Effects will create a folder containing your .eep file, a footage folder with all your assets, and a text report. This is the professional way to archive work. It allows you to move the project to an external hard drive or send it to another editor without worrying about missing links. It is a gift to future you. Closing thoughts. Rendering is the final deep breath of the creative process. It is the moment you commit your decisions to a permanent format. While codecs and bitrates can feel dry compared to the thrill of animation, mastering them ensures your art is seen exactly the way you imagined it. You now understand how to animate in space, track reality, sync audio, and deliver professional files. In the final chapter, we will look beyond the software. We will discuss how to build a portfolio, find work, and continue growing as a motion designer. Figure Mind Map, Chapter 13 Overview, Rendering and Exporting, Graph TDA, a Rendering and Exporting, B, Render Queue versus Media Encoder, C, Understanding Codecs, D, Optimization, E, Archiving, B1, Render Queue, High Quality Masters, B2, Media Encoder, Web and Compression, B3, Q equals Precision, AME equals Efficiency, C1, ProRes. Editing Standard, C2, ProRes 4444, RGB plus Alpha for transparency, C3, H.264, Web Standard .mp4, D1, Bitrate controls file size, D2, target, 16 to 20 megabits per second for YouTube, D3, target, 8 to 12 megabits per second for social, D4, the downscale for K to 1080p for mobile, E1, dependencies, collect files, E2, prevents missing footage, E3, essential for backups and handoffs, figure.
Chapter 14, Practical Project, Building a Professional Brand Intro. Section 14.1, Project Setup, Importing Logos and Planning the Storyboard. Section 14.2, Animation Phase, Sequencing Entrances and Adding Secondary Motion. Section 14.3, The Polish Pass, Adding Motion Blur, Grain, and Vignettes. Section 14.4, Final Output, Exporting Versions for YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We have covered a lot of ground together. From the basics of keyframes to the complexities of the 3D camera, and from the efficiency of expressions to the finality of rendering. You now possess a toolkit that rivals professional motion designers working at top agencies. But tools are only as good as the projects they build. It is time to stop practicing on abstract shapes and start building something you can actually use. In this chapter, we are going to create a brand intro. This is the 5 to 10 second animation that plays at the start of a YouTube video, a reel, or a client presentation. It is your digital handshake. A great intro isn't just about flashy effects, it is about establishing identity. We will combine vector artwork, smooth animation curves, and compositing tricks to turn a static logo into a living, breathing asset. Let's put everything we have learned into practice. 14.1 Project Setup, Importing Logos and Planning the Storyboard. Before we touch a single keyframe, we need to prepare our assets. The most common mistake new designers make is dragging a low-quality JPEG logo into the timeline. If you scale a pixel-based image, it turns into a blurry mess. For a professional intro, you need vector graphics, usually an Adobe Illustrator .re file. Vector graphics use math to define shapes, meaning you can scale them infinitely without losing quality. If you don't have a vector logo, use a simple text layer for this project. If you are using an Illustrator file, ensure the layers are separated. For example, the icon should be on one layer and the text on another inside Illustrator. Figure, high-resolution screenshot of the Adobe After Effects import file dialog box. The mouse cursor is hovering over the Import Kind drop-down menu, which is set to Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. The specific file selected is named brand_logo_vector.ai. Lighting focuses on the dialog box against a blurred interface background. Step 1. The Write Import method. Go to File, Import File. Select your .re file. Crucial step, in the Import as drop-down, select Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. Click Import. If you choose Footage, After Effects flattens your layers into one image. By choosing Composition, Retain Layer Sizes, AE builds a pre-made composition with all your Illustrator layers intact and positioned correctly. Step 2. The Continuously Rasterize switch. Once you open your new composition, you might notice the edges of your logo look jagged if you zoom in. This is because AE initially treats the vector like a bitmap to save processing power. To fix this, locate the sun icon, little starburst, in your Layer Switches column. This is the Continuously Rasterize switch. Figure, close-up diagram of the After Effects timeline layer switches. A bright red arrow points to the Continuously Rasterize icon, the small sun starburst shape, next to an Illustrator layer. The interface is dark gray, typical of Adobe CC 2024. The layer name is logo_icon.ai. Turn this switch on for all vector layers. Now, no matter how much you scale the layer or how close the camera gets, the lines will remain razor sharp. Step 3. Storyboarding the action. Don't just start moving things. Ask yourself, what is the personality of this brand? Asterisk tech brand, glitchy, fast, slide-ns. Asterisk luxury brand, slow, fading, elegant scale-ups. Asterisk kids brand, bouncy, squash and stretch. For this project, we will build a modern, energetic reveal. The icon will scale up with a bounce, and the text will slide out from behind it. 14.2 Animation Phase, Sequencing entrances and adding secondary motion. Animation feels robotic when everything happens at the same time. If the icon appears at the exact same frame the text slides in, the viewer's eye doesn't know where to look. We need to stagger the animation. We will animate the hero element, the icon, first, followed by the secondary element, the text. Animating the pop. Let's make the icon pop onto the screen. Select the icon layer. Move the playhead to 1 o'clock, 1 second. Press S to reveal scale. Click the stopwatch to set a keyframe at 100%. Move back to midnight. Set scale to 0%. Now you have a grow animation, but it looks linear and boring. Let's add the overshoot, where the object gets slightly too big before settling down. This creates weight. Move to 0-20, 20 frames. Set scale to 110%. The sequence is now 0%-110%-100%. Play it back. It grows, gets too big, and settles. It's better, but let's smooth it out with the graph editor we discussed in Chapter 2. Figure, detailed visual of the graph editor in value graph mode. The curve represents scale. It starts at 0, rises steeply in an S-curve to exceed the 100 line, overshoot, and then smoothly curves back down to settle at 100. Handles are visible, showing the easing. The background is the dark graph grid. Highlight all keyframes and press F9, Easy Ease. Then, open the graph editor and pull the handles to make the pop snappy at the beginning and soft at the end. The slide reveal. Now for the text. We want it to slide out from behind the icon. Move to 0-15. We start here because we want the text to emerge after the icon has started moving. Press P for position on your text layer. Set a keyframe for the final resting position. Move back to 0-05. Drag the X position value so the text hides behind the icon. Apply F9 to these keyframes as well. Pro tip: the alpha matte. If your text is wider than your icon, you can see it waiting behind the icon before it moves. We need to hide it until it slides out. We will use a track matte, as learned in Chapter 10. 1. Draw a rectangle shape layer that covers the area where you want the text to be visible, to the right of the icon. 2. Place this shape layer immediately above the text layer. 3. Set the text layer's track matte setting to alpha matte. Now, the text is invisible until it slides into the box you drew. This creates a clean wiping effect that looks incredibly professional. 14.3 The Polish pass, adding motion blur, grain, and vignettes. If you export the video right now, it will look naked. It looks like computer vector graphics. To make it look like a high-end broadcast, we need to add optical imperfections. Real cameras have blur, noise, and light fall-off. Motion blur. This is the easiest win in motion graphics. In real life, if something moves fast, it blurs. Toggle the motion blur switch. The icon looks like 3 circles moving, for all your moving layers. Turn on the master motion blur switch at the top of the timeline. Instantly, your fast pop animation looks smoother because AE generates intermediate blur frames. Adding texture with grain. Digital gradients often suffer from banding ugly stripes of color. Adding a subtle grain helps dither these colors and adds a filmic texture. Go to Layer New Adjustment Layer. Name it Look. Make sure this layer is at the very top of your stack. Apply the effect Noise and Grain Noise. Set the amount to 3% to 5%. Uncheck Use Color Noise, unless you want a retro VHS look. The vignette. To focus the viewer's eye on the center, let's darken the edges. Keep your look adjustment layer selected. Apply Color Correction Lumetri Color. Scroll down to the Vignette tab. Set the amount to -1.5, negative darkens the edges. These 3 steps, blur, grain, and vignette, take less than a minute but increase the production value by 10 times. It stops looking like a flash animation and starts looking like a video. 14.4 Final output, exporting versions for YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. In Chapter 13, we covered the technicals of rendering. For a brand project, you rarely deliver just one file. You need a version for YouTube, 16:9, and a vertical version for TikTok Reels, 9:16. We don't need to rebuild the project. We will duplicate and reframe. Step 1. The master comp. Finish your animation in your main 1920 by 1080 composition. Let's call this brand_intro_16:9. Step 2. The vertical conversion. Locate brand_intro_16:9 in your project panel. Press Ctrl+D, CMD+D, to duplicate it. Rename the copy brand _intro _ 9x16. Open the settings, Ctrl+K, and change the dimensions to 1080 by 1920. When you open this new comp, your logo will likely be too small or cut off. Create a null object, parent your icon and text to it, and scale the null up until the branding fits nicely in the vertical frame. Since you parented them, the animation curves remain perfectly intact. Step 3. The render queue. Now, add both compositions to the Adobe Media Encoder queue. Select both compositions in the project panel. Go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. Set both to H.264. Set the bitrate to high, target 15 to 20 megabits per second. Since this is a graphical intro, we want to avoid compression artifacts on the clean lines. Figure, detailed screenshot of the Adobe Media Encoder queue. Two jobs are listed, brand _intro _ 16x9 and brand _intro _ 9x16. The format column shows H.264. The preset column shows match source, high bitrate. The status column says ready. You now have a cohesive brand package ready for every platform. Summary. In this project, we moved beyond theory. We managed layer hierarchies, utilized the graph editor for emotion, employed matte techniques for clean reveals, and applied compositing polish to glue it all together. Most importantly, you learned that the difference between amateur and pro isn't usually a complex new tool. It is the combination of small details, the slight overshoot in a scale curve, the subtle grain on an adjustment layer, and the discipline to organize your project for multi-platform delivery. In the next chapter, we will tackle the unpredictable. We are going to learn how to fix footage that wasn't shot correctly, diving into the dark arts of color correction and visual repair. Figure Mind Map Chapter 14, Brand Intro Project Overview, Root, Building a Brand Intro, 14.1 Setup, Import Vector AI Files, Retain Layer Sizes, Continuously Rasterize, Sun Icon, 14.2 Animation, Sequencing Staggering, Overshoot, Scale 0-110-100, Graph Editor, F9 Easy Ease, Alpha Mats, Slide Reveal, 14.3 Polish, Motion Blur Switch, Adjustment Layers, Noise Grain, 3-5%, Vignette, Lumetry, 14.4 Output, Duplicate Comp, Reframe for Vertical, 916. Media Encoder queue.
Chapter 15, Troubleshooting and Career Growth. Section 15.1, Optimizing Performance, Managing Disk Cache and Memory. Section 15.2, Solving Common Errors, Missing Files and Render Glitches. Section 15.3, Building a Portfolio, What Creative Directors Look For. Section 15.4, Continuing Education, Resources for Keeping Your Skills Sharp. In Chapter 14, we brought everything together to create a polished brand intro. You now have a tangible asset that represents your identity. However, the reality of working with high-end motion graphics software is that the road is rarely smooth. After Effects is a powerhouse, but it is also demanding. It eats RAM for breakfast and processor cycles for lunch. There will be days when the software slows down, files go missing, or a render fails right before a deadline. This chapter is the mechanics manual for your creative engine. We are going to look under the hood to keep your system running smoothly. Then, we will shift focus to your future, discussing how to take these skills and build a career that lasts. 15.1 Optimizing Performance, Managing Disk Cache and Memory. Nothing kills creativity faster than the spinning weight cursor. When you press the spacebar to preview your animation, you want to see it play back in real time, not stutter frame by frame. Performance in After Effects essentially comes down to two things: RAM, random access memory, and disk cache. Think of RAM as your workspace. The bigger the desk, the more papers you can spread out at once. Disk cache is your filing cabinet. It stores things you have already figured out so you don't have to recalculate them. Allocating memory. By default, Adobe tries to play nice with other applications on your computer. However, when you are deep in a project, you want After Effects to be greedy. You want it to take every bit of available memory to ensure your previews are green, cached, and smooth. To adjust this, we need to visit the Preferences menu. Go to Edit Preferences and Memory and Performance, Windows, or After Effects, Preferences and Memory and Performance, Mac. Look for RAM reserved for other applications. I recommend setting this to the lowest number allowed, usually 3 GB or 6 GB, depending on your total RAM. This tells the computer, give the operating system just enough to survive, and give After Effects everything else. The power of disk cache. Figure, close-up UI screenshot of the After Effects Preferences or window, specifically the Memory and Performance tab. A bright red highlight box circles the RAM reserved for other applications number input, showing it set to a low number like 3 GB. Another highlight points to the RAM available for After Effects. The interface is dark mode, typical of Adobe CC. While RAM is fast, it clears out every time you close the program. The disk cache is persistent. It saves rendered frames to your hard drive. This is why you might see a blue line above your timeline. Those are frames After Effects has saved to the disk so it doesn't have to re-render them. If you have a fast external SSD, this is the best place to put your cache. Keeping your cache on a separate drive from your operating system can significantly speed up your workflow. In the same Media and Disk Cache Preference tab, look at Maximum Disk Cache Size. Be generous here. If you have the space, set this to 50 GB or 100 GB. Click Choose Folder to select your fast SSD. Figure, a split-screen diagram. On the left, a screenshot of the Media and Disk Cache Preferences showing the Empty Disk Cache button and the slider for cache size. On the right, a stylized 3D illustration of an external SSD drive connected to a laptop with a glowing blue data cable, symbolizing high-speed transfer. A speed-up icon floats above the drive. If your drive fills up, After Effects can become sluggish. Make it a habit to click Empty Disk Cache once you finish a major project to free up space for the next one. 15.2 Solving Common Errors, Missing Files and Render Glitches. You open your project, ready to work, and suddenly your beautiful video is replaced by colorful bars resembling a 1980s TV test pattern. This is the color bars error, and it means After Effects has lost track of a file. Relinking missing footage. After Effects does not store your video files inside the project file, .eep. It simply links to where they live on your hard drive. If you rename a folder, move a file, or unplug a drive, that link breaks. To fix this, look at your project panel. You will see a small color bar icon next to the missing items. Right-click the missing file in the project panel. Select Replace Footage of File. Navigate to the file's new location and select it. The beauty of this system is that if you have multiple missing files in the same folder, After Effects is smart enough to find the rest of them automatically once you identify the first one. Figure, a screenshot of the After Effects project panel. Several items are listed. One item is highlighted in red with a color bar icon instead of a thumbnail. A right-click context menu is open, with the cursor hovering over Replace Footage file. The background of the composition viewer shows the dreaded Media Offline a color bars pattern. Purging the glitches. Sometimes, you might see weird green flashes or artifacts in your preview that aren't actually in your footage. This often happens because a frame was cached incorrectly in the memory. Before you panic and reinstall the software, try a purge. This forces After Effects to dump its short-term memory and look at the files fresh. Go to Edit Purge All Memory and Disk Cache. This will clear that green bar on your timeline and force the software to re-render the frames. It fixes about 90% of visual glitches that occur during long work sessions. Figure, a minimalistic flowchart diagram with 3 steps. Step 1, an icon of a computer screen with a glitched effect. Arrow points to Step 2, a menu item highlighted Editor Purge. Arrow points to Step 3, a computer screen showing a crystal clear, perfect image with a green checkmark indicating solved. 15.3 Building a portfolio, what creative directors look for. We have covered the technical side of the software, but now we need to address the human side of the industry. You have the skills, but how do you get the work? As someone who has hired many motion designers, I can tell you that a creative director does not have time to watch 5 full projects. They want to see a show reel, or demo reel. The rules of the reel. Your reel is a 30 to 60-second compilation of your best work. It needs to be fast, energetic, and flawlessly timed to music. Recall the sync techniques from Chapter 12. Here is the golden rule: quality over quantity. It is better to have a 30-second reel that is absolutely stunning than a 2-minute reel that includes mediocre work. If you include weak work, the viewer will assume that represents your average skill level. Only show your best. Figure, a creative infographic layout comparing a good reel vs a bad reel. The good reel side shows a stopwatch at 45 seconds, a best of badge, and icons representing diverse styles. The bad reel side shows a stopwatch at 3 minutes, a tutorial icon crossed out, and a sleeping emoji to indicate boredom. The style is clean, vector art. Showing intent. Do not fill your portfolio with tutorials you have followed step by step. If I see the standard bouncing balls tutorial that everyone does, I know you can follow instructions, but I don't know if you can create. Take the techniques you learned in this book, like the rotoscoping from Chapter 10 or the brand intro from Chapter 14, and customize them. Change the colors, alter the timing, and add your own assets. Show that you understand the principles, not just the buttons. 15 point for continuing education, resources for keeping your skills sharp. The world of motion graphics moves incredibly fast. The version of After Effects you are using today will look different in 2 years. New features, AI tools, and plugins are released constantly. To stay relevant, you must adopt the mindset of a lifelong learner. You have finished this book, but you have not finished your education. Where to look? Adobe Live and Behance, these are great for seeing professional workflows in real time. You can watch pros work through actual projects, which is often more valuable than a scripted tutorial. Plugin developers, keep an eye on companies like Maxon, Red Giant, or Video Copilot. Even if you don't buy their tools, their demonstrations often teach you about lighting and composition concepts that apply everywhere. Community challenges, participating in monthly animation challenges, like 36 Days of Type on Instagram, forces you to create consistently. It builds your portfolio and connects you with other artists. Figure, a collage-style illustration representing the digital learning. In the center, a glowing brain connected to various icons, a YouTube logo, a book icon, a player button, and a community chat bubble. The background features faint schematic lines of After Effects keyframes, suggesting that learning is the underlying structure of the software. The final frame. You have come a long way since opening this book. You have mastered layers, tamed the graph editor, navigated 3D space, and learned to render your creations for the world to see. Remember that every professional you admire, from YouTube stars to Hollywood VFX artists, started exactly where you are, staring at an empty composition, wondering what to do next. The difference is that they kept placing keyframes. Keep creating, keep crashing, and learning how to fix it, and most importantly, keep moving. Figure mind map, troubleshooting and growth, optimizing performance, memory settings, RAM allocation, closing background apps, disk cache, SSD usage, purging cache, green bar, preview, solving errors, missing footage, color bars, relinking files, project panel, glitches, purge all memory, update drivers, render queue versus media encoder, building portfolio, the show reel, under 60 seconds, best work only, sync to music, what directors want, originality. No raw tutorials, problem solving, continuing education, resources, Adobe Live, community challenges, plugin demos, mindset, lifelong learning, adapt to updates.